Okay, should be live now. Hello, all one or two people who are watching this. But yeah, this should be archived, and I didn't want to go through the hassle of editing all my thoughts together and writing a whole script. So I decided I would live stream this instead and just have it all as one incoherent bobble. But I did write down some notes beforehand of things to discuss, and I'd also like to take in feedback from whoever's watching so we can kind of figure out what's going on with Chapter 14. Because there are a lot of points to cover, and yeah, just like what everyone's thinking about it. Hello, people. Yeah, so there will be pauses as I am alone here and have no one to chat with. But yeah, so let's get started. First of all, if you have not read Chapter 14, you should probably leave now, but I'm assuming anyone who's read the title of the stream should be aware of the spoilers. But let's see where to begin. So I'm also going to be flipping through my Discord of conversations I've had earlier today to like see the conversations I've had and kind of explain viewpoints of others and my own viewpoints on things. Let me scroll up on this. And I'll also be discussing the timeline today because I don't expect everyone to have watched my video on the timeline, but it was actually surprisingly accurate, my first one. So I'm only going to be appending that lightly. Alright, so I would join the voice chat on my Discord so that people can chat with me there. And I might do that later, but the problem is if we get like more than 3-4 people in there, it's going to get really, really noisy really quickly. But yeah, I have MS Paint up here so I can draw timelines. So yeah, I don't actually have all my thoughts together because I went out to dinner with my family today, and I didn't have any time to prepare aside from stuff that I thought up earlier. So I guess I'll start with the timeline. So let me pull up an image real quick of the old timeline. Let's see, where is it? It would be in my projects. Here, this one, not that one. It would be this one. All right, so this right here is my old timeline theory. And yeah, this should upload as like its own video. I decided to live stream it because I didn't want to edit something together, because that would take forever, and I'm running low on time these days. But yeah, so here's my old timeline. So basically, this one was made for the theory that there were two different Zethias for two different colors of clothing. Which Xena's story actually reveals that they are in fact the same Zethia, which is still an unanswered question of why the highlights of the dress changed color. And beyond that, another question is why do some Zethias revert back to their original clothing while some Zethias like Xena stay in the changed outfit from the other. But basically, with this timeline, we start at Chapter 1, where Juden goes to make his Dragon Pact, and Aurelius sends him out. Aurelius, meanwhile, goes to the Binding Ruins. So basically, in the original timeline, and Zethia confirms that this timeline, or Xena confirms that this timeline exists, there is no Zethia interfering it. So there's no future Zethia, no Zethia from the future to interfere with things. So the timeline just goes forward. So Juden never goes to the Binding Ruins, and because of this, Aurelius lives. Now, I've kind of been thinking over how that happens, like is he captured, what goes on, and I came up with an idea that if Kronos exists in this timeline, which in the Fractured Futures timeline he does, that Zodiark is probably captured at the Binding Ruins and covers Aurelius's escape, and that's how the other gets Zodiark for Kronos, because Kronos is a combination of all the Great Worms, but if Juden doesn't go to the Binding Ruins, Aurelius never dies, Zodiark's pact is never dissolved, and Juden never makes a pact with Zodiark. So the other has to get Zodiark in some other way, so he would get him at the Binding Ruins, perhaps. It doesn't have to happen here, it could happen later on, but this is an idea of where Kronos would, how he would get Zodiark for Kronos. So basically, that happens, Aurelius escapes, Aurelius goes and finds a Dawn Shard and brings it to Zethia, so they team up at some point. And then future Zethia then uses the Dawn Shard to travel to the main campaign, which is this second timeline here. Crom's story is a different branch from that, where Zethia gets possessed, gets unpossessed, and the other possesses Juden, and then Crom deals with that. So, and then that future Zethia dies, so that's a dead timeline. Fractured Futures after Audric's story is also a dead timeline, and I'll go more into that later. So we have the new timeline where Blue Zethia appears. We can ignore the red down here because there's only one Zethia, so it's pretty much just this timeline in the middle here. So what happens is, I think there's two different branches that occur here. Either Kronos kills future Zethia, or Kronos does not kill future Zethia. So basically, I think that the Xena from specifically Audric's timeline is the one that dies, because in Audric's story there is no Zethia Xena. There's no one. It's just him and Zodiark, which means she's not around anymore. So I think the Xena specific to his reality is the one that died. And the one, meanwhile, in a different branch, the one where we get Xena who joins the main campaign, is from a different reality where Audric is either doing something else, or Aurelius would be, or Audric, it doesn't matter, is either doing something else, or like her reality is not really gone into much yet. We know a few events that happened. We know that Aurelius is alive at some point in that, but we don't know if he's still alive. We don't know if he's become Audric. We only know up to the point of him where he gave the Dawn Shard to Zethia. So basically, let me see if I can draw this. So do we have the timeline? And this is where that's huge. All right, so that's too small. So this is where Xena and Audric, or Aurelius at the time, team up. All right, and so basically this timeline splits at some point. I've sketched this out. I'm going to try and draw this accurately. So basically, so let's see, right here, this timeline splits when Kronos kills Xena. So that's this timeline. So Kronos kills Xena in the past, but this would affect the present. I really need to explain parallel timelines and closed time loops, because that's going to help a lot, and I haven't exactly done that yet. But yeah, we have a timeline where Kronos kills Xena. Then we have a timeline where Xena lives, and this isn't the timeline where she becomes a party member, because that's the main campaign timeline, and both of these are alternates of Fractured Futures. Let's see. So Xena lives. And projects herself to the main campaign using the Dawn Shard. All right. So basically, when Kronos kills Xena, this would be Audric's timeline, the Audric that we get from Fractured Futures, because there's no Xena in his story. We can presume she's dead because they would still be working together. We also know... All right, I just need to go ahead and explain closed time loops, because I'm not going to get anywhere without that. So I've talked before about parallel realities. So basically, parallel realities are realities that are identical. So these two lines are the same. However, they're offset in time. So there will be like a universal point constant in time. So any horizontal line through these is a universal constant point in time. It can be up here, down here, anywhere. And then the present is going to be a different moment in time. So right now is happening, say, right here. So say this is our world. So right now is happening here. So in this parallel reality right now could be happening later from now. So let's say that time moves forward as it moves up. So this is time moving forward. I'm going to do... I'll put a T on that to represent time. So this on this axis, it's time is progressing. So if we traveled here, if we traveled directly through to a different reality and landed here, we would be in the past. And it wouldn't be the past of our own timeline. It would be a different timeline. And any changes we made would not affect our original timeline. So in Dragalia Lost, if causality pulled you back, it would pull you back to this original timeline here, and nothing would have changed. It is important to note that with universal constants in time, and I'm not sure it works this way in Dragalia Lost, but this is the way it theoretically works, is if you leave your timeline, spend 5 minutes in an alternate timeline, and return, 5 minutes will have elapsed and happened while you're gone. So theoretically, that's how it works, because time is constant between all realities. Now, in Dragalia Lost, you're always pulled back to your original reality. Like, there's one specific reality that is your original one, and causality pulls you back to it. So I'm not sure if it pulls you back to a very specific one, because you can also say that there are timelines. Oops, gosh, I just need to draw a straight line. You can also say that there's a time. It's not blue. You can also say that there's a. Where's my color? There it is. There. So you can also say that there's a timeline between these two, and it's gonna like have. My color keeps changing. Goes right there. So there's the current present moment. So there are infinite timelines between these for infinite amount of jumps, and the distance between these. The smallest distance between these is going to be 1 over infinity, which is a very small number. The relativity of this is actually insane, so I'm not going to go into it. So let's just work with timelines with absolute numbers, like a timeline exactly 5 minutes in the past or the future. But how closed time loops work is if I were in this reality and I jumped to this one to make a change, someone from a different reality that is exactly the same temporally offset in the opposite direction would then enter my original reality to take my place. And so these realities would remain parallel. All right, I'm reading chat for a moment because people are saying things. All right, one of the questions that is asked is, do you think events are canon to the main campaign? And that's actually something I want to talk about too, because there are several possibilities with the canonicity of events. Yeah, what if every event is also a different timeline? That's one of the possibilities. But basically with this, so this is a closed time loop. For every instance of a person that leaves a timeline, they're also re-entering, a different version of them is re-entering that same timeline at an equidistant point that they're off. So basically these timelines remain exact because you're entering a different timeline, but a different you is entering your old one. So let's see, what's a good way to put this? You know, in some video games where you can make clones of yourself, and all the clones respond to the same input. Like if you have 2 of yourself and you go left, and all the clones go left. It's kind of like that. So it's like if someone said like jump 5 minutes in the future, and all the parallel realities had that one character jump 5 minutes to the future. Hello, I was just wondering if the time in DL was a constant. Remember how Juden and Fractured Futures kept jumping a different time and coming back at the exact same night? Okay, so yes. So basically, he never spent more than a few minutes in any reality except Audric's, which might have been a few hours. He might have spent a few hours, like, because I'm sure the fight with Kronos didn't last, like, hours. So the entirety of Fractured Futures could happen in one night. Because here's the other thing. So if... Let me think of how to phrase this real quick. Because one of the points I need to make is that Kronos would only be hunting down his specific Zethia. So if your past is locked in. So they explain this on spoilers for the movie Avengers Endgame. Bruce Banner kind of explains it like if you go to the past, then that past becomes your future, and your present becomes your past, and like you can't directly change your past. It's kind of like that. So for every, let me draw a new timeline here. So with direct time travel, how it works in a movie like Back to the Future is you would directly go from your present directly to a past moment in your own personal timeline. So basically, you'd go from the future to the past. and then you would directly interfere with events, and then like Back to the Future handles it kind of weird because like when you change something, you have some time to fix it before you start fading out of existence. Versus you have like, say, a closed time loop. So like the Terminator franchise, and I guess spoilers for that, I've never seen the movie, but I've heard about it, is a closed time loop where a character goes to the past and the timeline still happens exactly the same because they had always gone to the past. So basically, like, let me draw. Oh gosh, can I just copy these? Can I just draw some lines and copy them? Dude. All right, we're gonna make this blue. Paste, 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 paste. Check. All right. So basically, with a closed time loop, if someone say this is the present, and someone needs to go to the past here, so they go to the past and then they continue back to the present. Well, guess what? Someone from over here did the same thing, and now these are identical. So now all these timelines are still identical, they're just temporally offset. So that's how time travel between parallel realities works. Direct time travel, you change your past and I guess it kind of catches up with you. That's how it works in Back to the Future. It's kind of weird. But, so, let's see. What I'm trying to culminate in is how Kronos killed Zethia, because if Zethia was traveling like all over timelines, how would he track down the exact one he kills? Well, he doesn't have to kill his exact Zethia, because any parallel version of Kronos can kill any Zethia. So basically, like, say, gosh, I just need to like blank canvas this. Give me a sec. Boop, there we go. All right, so let's say we're right here in the timeline, and Kronos was looking for Zethia. So he has to go, say, to this point to kill Zethia. So he, let's see. So, like, these points are the same point in the present, and let's say Kronos is, let's see. I need to figure out where he would be. So Kronos would be in the future, so he needs to go to the past. Yeah, so Kronos would be right here, and Zethia would be right here at the same time. So these points are identical. These are the present. And this point is the past relative to this point, but they're happening at the same time because with this model, you can only travel horizontally between timelines. So basically, Kronos would have to travel straight here to kill Zethia, and he would only be killing Zethia in this timeline. So he would only be altering a different timeline. The thing is, relative to his timeline, Zethia is back down here. And a different parallel Kronos is at the same time coming to kill his. So he doesn't have to kill directly his Zethia in his timeline. As long as he operates within parallel realities, closed time loops will kill Zethia from a different Kronos. I don't know, it's kind of confusing. I get it's confusing. Basically, Kronos tracks down his specific Zethia. And the reason we know that he's tracking down his specific Zethia is if he really is trying to protect his own existence, he would have no... and like the other, like he says in Fractured Futures that this is the will of my liege as well as my own, that he is trying to protect his own existence. Oh, sorry, that's what I said. That they're trying to... Let me rephrase. Okay. They're trying to stop Xena. We know from Xena's story, we know from Chapter 14, Xena's story, and the interlude from Chapter 13 that Xena isn't trying to change the past. She's looking for something to change the future. And so what she did in the main campaign's timeline is she altered it. So basically by altering it, she has created a reality in which something that could fix her reality could exist. And so Kronos isn't trying to stop Zethia. He's trying to stop Zethia from like changing a different past, but he's not trying to stop Zethia from changing his past. He's trying to keep her from changing a reality so she can get the thing that will fix her future. And so, let's see. Yeah, so basically, by stopping Zethia right at the beginning, she can no longer fix the world and get what she's looking for. Yeah. So, shoot, I had another point. Let me look at my list of things real quick. Alright, so this is where it gets kind of confusing. Because there are realities in which Kronos succeeds and realities in which he dies. So this is the model I was drawing earlier. Give me a sec, I'm going to clear this. Alright. So, I'm actually just going to make this black. It'll look nicer. So, we know that Fractured Future starts off as a timeline in which no future Zethia interfered. So, at the same time, because future Zethia made such minimal changes after the prologue. So I mentioned this in my initial theory video that in the prologue, she made so minor changes to the timeline that if she died right after her interference with the prologue, nothing would change. The major change she did was sending the group to the Binding Ruins, because that the biggest thing that does is it keeps Aurelius alive or it kills him. Sending them to the Binding Ruins, Aurelius dies. Don't send him to the Binding Ruins, Aurelius lives. And I think that's the biggest change between the two. Which means Aurelius probably had something to do with Baron's revival, or not being revived. So let me start labeling this so it makes more sense. This is going to be Fractured Futures. Not quite. This isn't all Fractured Futures. I'm going to call this No Futures at it. No Xena interference. That's more accurate. Alright, so this is a timeline where Xena did not interfere. So basically, it branches in one of two ways. Either Kronos kills Xena, or Kronos does not interfere. So basically, in Fractured Futures, Kronos successfully kills Xena in a timeline. However, because we also kill Kronos before he kills Xena later in the story, there's also exists a timeline where he does not kill Xena, which leads directly to the main campaign. So here we have, basically, let me grab some red. We have a point here. This is where Kronos sets off on his mission. Let me draw a nice little arc here. I should actually draw that. Can I draw this? Yeah, there we go. All right. So I'm going to make this red because I like red for pointy arrows. So basically, this Alright, so this is where Kronos goes to kill Xena. So basically, when this happens, he travels back and meets Juden, or meets Juden in a different timeline, pulls him into this timeline, and kills Xena. So, no, wait. I think I got this backwards. Shoot. Yep, I got this backwards. Let me swap these real quick. Alright, Yeah, so it is in this timeline where Xena dies. Yeah, so Kronos only exists in a reality where Xena dies. And then he does not exist in a reality where he fails. Okay, there we go. So Xena dies, Kronos is created. So then Kronos goes back and gets a closed time loop here. He gets a nice little closed time loop. However, we also know that at some point, right, let me grab color, right about here. So any point before he succeeds in killing Xena, we have a new branch. No, that's the wrong color. Okay. All right, we have a new branch. And so right here, it branches when Kronos dies. So this branch happens when Juden and Audric come here, and this is the Fractured Futures reality that Audric is from. So Audric's timeline is he goes along the no Xena interference timeline as Aurelius, doesn't die at the ruins, but Xena dies and does not interfere in this timeline. So there's no Xena, there's no future Xena. So like no Xena interference continues here. And then he continues on, and then Kronos exists in this reality, and either Kronos succeeds and goes back and kills Xena, or Juden and Audric team up and kill Kronos beforehand. So Xena lives, Kronos fails. This becomes the main campaign, I think. No, because this is a reality with no Xena interference. So, sorry, this becomes Xena's reality. Let me label that real quick so I don't forget. This becomes Xena's reality. Call this one Fractured Futures. I gotta get caught up on chat. People are saying things and I'm missing them. Alright, so this is Fractured Futures, and then this one would be Audric's story. And I'm just gonna put a little X there because everyone died. So yeah, we can safely assume that if Kronos succeeds, everyone dies. So we can put an X there because everyone dies, and that's reality too. Because Xena's dead in this reality, and Audric leaves, everyone else dies. Like literally everyone else. So let me get caught up on chat. Alright. When is time travel not confusing? Never. Like, time travel just causes paradox all the way. Multiverse time travel is a time travel that's immune to paradox, but it's just more confusing because there are so many realities to avoid paradox. Like, something changed, new reality. Something branched, new reality. Closed time loop, multiple parallel realities. And we're not even getting into alternate realities because those aren't really used in time travel. Yeah, so point about Aurelius interfering with fairies and Baron's return. So, yeah, here's the thing. The only major difference that Xena has made that we know of is that Aurelius lives. Like, in the time, like, so we know that because she interfered, Juden does not get possessed in chapter 14, but that happens much later on. And that is the thing she was trying to prevent. So everything before that is what she was trying to change. So, by sending the group to the Binding Ruins, and I'm guessing this is the first reality in which she's done that. Like, she's tried other things, like trying to get them to stop, trying to lead them other places, trying to tell them about things. Like, we don't know what she's tried, but by sending them to the Binding Ruins, Aurelius dies, which means he's not operating in the background. We know from Xena's story he only appears once, but he does, and he gives her the Dawn Shard. And he gives her the Dawn Shard because she has the mana to use it properly. Or to use it continuously, rather. And for those who don't know, the Auspex of the Ilian Church is an individual blessed with Ilia's mana. So she has practically, I don't want to say unlimited mana, she has a lot of it. And we know from Kindred Ties that the other has the ability to affect dimensional rifts. So when like Alphonse's power was going crazy, the other was able to quell the rifts or let them run wild. All right. So basically, it would make sense that the other being in the world would be able to keep Xena out of it. So when Juden is going to make his Dragon Pact, when he's in the woods and encounters Xena for the first time, Xena is like summoning monsters, and then she like glitches and she like falls down. She's running out of power. I think that is probably the exact moment the other entered the world and possessed Aurelius, because the other would at that moment start blocking her mana, and it escalates from there. It gets harder and harder and harder. And I believe like in chapter 4 is probably when her willpower overpowers the other and she gets back into the world for a little bit. Didn't Ilia create more Sayati? I'll get into that. I have a problem with the Perditionists, and it's the same problem I have with Elisan right now. So basically she gets back into the world. She musters up enough mana to get back in chapter 4. And then when the other possesses Zethia in chapter 5, he then has access to Zethia's mana, Zethia's body, Zethia's power, the power of Ilia, whatever. Becomes powerful enough to block her completely from the world. And so we see her in the chapter 13 interlude trying to break back into that world. She's mustering mana. She's trying, but she can't do it because Morsayati is powerful enough to block her because he's using the same amount of mana to block her, plus his own ability as a demon. So when he's finally no longer in control, when Baron absorbs him, she can return because she's no longer being blocked. But anyway, back to what Aurelius was doing. So when the group doesn't go to the Binding Ruins, in the main campaign, when Juden is in the Binding Ruins, Aurelius dies to save him. So if Juden isn't there, Aurelius isn't saving anyone, so he doesn't have to die. And like Aurelius calls Juden out for being stupid when Juden is trusting Zethia after the transformation. So it's decently obvious that Aurelius knows what's going on after Morsayati possesses Zethia. So he would kind of have a handle on what's going on. So he would either A, surrender and get captured and break free relatively quickly, or B, he would make his escape, because we know a couple things. A, they brought guards with them. There were other guards that we fought in, and we saw, I believe, in cutscenes in chapter 5. So they could help. They would probably be loyal to Aurelius and help him escape. Maybe. They might be loyal to Zethia or Harl, who's also working with Zethia. Or, more likely, as I mentioned earlier, Zodiark covers his escape and gets captured and is used to make Kronos later on. So basically, Aurelius is now a wild card who doesn't exist in the main timeline. And it's kind of unclear why he wouldn't team up with Juden. He's off doing his own thing. Like, maybe he's just like very focused on keeping things from going like terribly crazy, because he gets the Dawn Shard somehow, and we don't know where he got the Dawn Shard. And that's one of the lingering plot points that they call attention to, is where did he get the Dawn Shard? And Juden from the main campaign in Xena's story asks, where do we get that in our world? Because we want to keep that out of the enemy's hands. So there's a couple things we know about what Audric did while he was away. So he got the Dawn Shard, and he did something, because he's the only wild card, he did something that prevented Baron from being revived. Now, Aurelius is Baron's father, presumably. Baron is the 5th heir. So Aurelius would seemingly have knowledge of Baron. So it makes sense that if someone was scheming to let him go, Fares, he would put a stop to that. And if he puts a stop to that, Baron isn't around to stop the other from possessing Juden. And so, boom, there you go. Closed timeline. Juden gets possessed, nothing stops that. I did have kind of an off-the-wall theory that the Dawn Shard's creation had something to do with Baron. Like Baron was converted into a Dawn Shard or something, because we still don't know much about his power. So there's very little known about that, and there's not much point speculating because of how little we have to go off of. We can throw down theories, but we don't have much evidence for anything at this point. So I guess the next thing I'll move into is Juden, because a lot of people have been complaining about Juden and his, like, walks into the throne room, I'm here to take back my sister, and the other's like, well, if you let me possess you, I'll leave her and she'll be great. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And, like, I've seen a lot of people have a problem with that, like, after all the warnings he's received, like, Juden, if you let the other possess you, it will destroy the world. So that calls into question first something that others have pointed out is, are the events canon? And there's a few possibilities here. Kind of don't want to delete this, so let me save it real quick. All right, so possibility one is that all the events are canon to a separate timeline. So back when the Netflix series Daredevil came out and started releasing, like, all those little side series after the Avengers, like Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, it was really interesting because none of the movies acknowledged them, but in Daredevil Season 1, there were several references to Avengers. So it's like, it's a one-way canonicity. Like, Avengers is canon to the Netflix series, but the Netflix series aren't canon to the MCU. So it'd be kind of like that in here, where the main campaign is canon to the events, but the events are not canon to the main campaign. So that's one possible theory. It's a one-way type deal. The other possible one is that events are only canon to, like it's kind of like a one-way canonicity, except events only have the story canon of chapters that came before them. So, like, we have, like, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and, like, we have these here. And, like, any events that happen between branch. So, like, these are all events that happened over here. And so, like, for instance, A Wish to the Winds would, well, I guess we'd start at chapter 6 because that one was out with all the events. So forget all this. But basically, like, let's say A Wish to the Winds happens here, and then we get chapter 7. So chapter 7 is not canon to A Wish to the Winds. And, like, so chapter 14 came out. So chapter 14 would not happen before Fractured Futures. And, like, I have a few thoughts about where Fractured Futures happens in the timeline. I'm pretty sure it happens somewhere after chapter 1 and before chapter 14. It has to, because he doesn't know who Xena is yet, which means he hasn't hit chapter 14. He could be after chapter 5. But he has to be after chapter 1 because all of the futures he visits are chapter 1 stuff. He visits the point where, the very end of chapter 1 at the Halidom, at the front of the Mistholt, when Zethia gets kidnapped, he visits Aurelius at the Binding Ruins, which would happen during the prologue, and he visits Aurelius when he's leaving for the Binding Ruins, which happened before the prologue. So I think that Fractured Futures, I'm pretty positive Fractured Futures happens, like, where it happens. So it'd be, like, somewhere between, I don't know, chapters 6 and 8 or something. But, like, where it happens specifically isn't too much of an issue. The question is, where does Audric come from? So at the end of Audric's story, he uses what probably uses a gate, because there's 3 types of dimensional travel that I've covered in previous videos. I covered it most in depth in my video on the 2 different Zethias. That there are interdimensional, what are they called? The things, the stones you get in raid events. Fragments, like dimensional fragments. Shoot, I can't remember what they're called. But it's the resource you get in raids to actually do the raid. And it lets you enter the other world. So the other world is the space between worlds. So if we have 2 timelines, these can be treated like 2 separate realities. And you can enter right into here, and that's where the boss fight happens. Then you go back. Causality pulls you back once the shard runs out of power. Then you can use a Dawn Shard. Yeah, otherworldly fragments, that was it. Gosh, I set this thing to ultra low latency. Why is it so delayed? Anyway, so otherworldly fragments take you into the other world, and then you get taken back. You can't enter another reality. With a Dawn Shard, you can enter this until you run out of mana. Then you get sucked back. With a gate, you can enter the other reality. It's a one-way trip. So I'm thinking, like, gates are the only way we know to break causality. So Cassandra would have helped Audric build a gate. So we know that gates just can be assembled. Like in Crom's story, they build a gate. In the first Fire Emblem event, they find a gate. In Kindred Ties, they build a gate. So it seems to reason that to break causality, Cassandra would just have built Audric and Zodiark a gate. And it's kind of sad that, like, the other people could have probably gone through it with them, but they all decided to go mad and kill Nott and Cassandra. But yeah, so where does Audric come into the main campaign? Because if Audric and Xena, I don't think they're from the exact same reality, because otherwise Xena would have shown up in Fractured Futures. I think the Xena from Audric's specific reality was the one killed by Kronos. And Xena is from a branching reality where Kronos failed. So in the later half of Fractured Futures, Kronos has succeeded, even though they kill him before he leaves. So okay. Let me see if I can get this straight. So Juden goes out on his journey. Xena shows up and tries to stop him. Kronos kills Xena. And so it continues as normal. Audric lives because they don't go to the Binding Ruins, and like becomes Audric. Aurelius becomes Audric. And like teams up with Zethia. That let's see. So they then kill Kronos before he leaves, before he succeeds with Juden. Juden joins them for a little bit, breaking causality, and yeah. So I'm suddenly questioning how Juden got into the Fractured Futures world, because it is a raid event, which means he technically would have used an otherworldly fragment. But going all the way by this theory would require a Dawn Shard. Anyway, you fight him in the other world. So, basically, yeah, so starts out, Xena interferes, but she dies after the prologue, so she doesn't send anyone to the Binding Ruins. And then Audric gets de-aged, makes the plan with Xena, sends her off, but she never returns because she dies, but does successfully kill Kronos, which means Xena is killed by a parallel Kronos, or a branching Kronos at this point, I guess. Gosh, that's confusing. It's like there's one timeline has two different Kronos, one from a branching reality, not a parallel, but a branching reality where he succeeds. And that timeline doesn't matter because it's doomed. Any timeline that culminates in an X is one you can safely ignore because everyone's dead. And so the timeline where Kronos succeeds in killing Xena and then returns to his timeline, that timeline that Kronos is from is dead because Kronos succeeded. Then the Fractured Futures one where Kronos dies, well, sadly is also doomed because everyone dies. I feel I got way off topic from my original point of talking about Juden and his decision. Right, I was talking about the canonicity of events. So, basically, and then I got into where Fractured Futures is. Basically, the question is, where does Audric come in? Like, when does he join the Halidom? Because here's the thing. We don't know how long his story takes. We don't know how long after Fractured Futures his story picks up. We don't know how long he's traveling with Parallel Zodiark and collecting refugees during his story. So we don't know when he comes to the Halidom. So basically, for things, if events are canon, he has to come to the Halidom after Chapter 14. Otherwise, he would have given the party ample warnings. And at the end of Fractured Futures, Audric offers to tell Juden about the future. He's like, do you want to know the future? And Juden's like, nah, I'm good. And there is absolutely no way he would stay silent if he came to the Halidom like when he did. So here's the thing. If he comes to the Halidom after 14, he's in a much different world because Juden never got possessed by the other, and the other has been dealt with, which means the future from here on out is completely unknown to Audric. There are still a few things he knows. A, where the Dawn Shard is, how to get one. That's it. Whatever else he did in that time he was away, like whatever other secrets he possesses. He probably also knows who Finlorda is, which would be nice. But yeah, so I think that the end of Audric's story happens after chapter 14. So, and that's only if events are canon. So back to that question: are events canon? So either events are not canon to the main story, or they are canon to the main story but happen, like, when do they happen is the question. And I'm pretty sure, like, the new United Front, if I remember correctly, had Juden in his Gala uniform, which means it's after chapter 10. Alright, let me catch up on comments really quick. Yeah, someone pointed that out a bit back, that he's wearing his Gala armor in the United Front. So yeah, that one has to happen after chapter 10. Let's see. Yeah, so the thing with Lara Noah, because Lara Noah shows up in chapter 12. The Hunt for Harmony event does not have to be canon to have that happen, because we know from the Hunt for Harmony event, and probably from Lara Noah's story, Wouldn't Know, Never Summoned, that she is a childhood friend of Cerise and Luca. And we know that Cerise went and rallied the troops and the Sylvans. So it would stand to reason that Cerise would not only rally her own village, but would go to Cerise's village, would go to Lara Noah's village and rally their troops as well. So it stands to reason that the Hunt for Harmony event does not need to be canon for Lara Noah to show up, because we know who her character is. Let's see. If you hear bumping noises in the background, that's my cat. His name is Luca, no relation to Dragalia Lost. Dragalia Life. Yes, Dragalia Life features Audric. It also features, I don't know. I'm not sure about the canonicity of Dragalia Life. That one's another question. I feel like Dragalia Life is kind of in the scenario of the main story and events are canon to Dragalia Life, but Dragalia Life is not canon to the game. I feel like that one actually has a solid case. So, let's see. Alright, so back to Juden taking the other's bargain. So this is where event canon comes in, because if we consider that the events are not canon, then if we just look at chapters 1 through 12, that's all we get. He has only had a single vague warning not to take the other, which is from Xena in chapter 5, right before she goes. She says, "My journey ends in failure." But he, the engrave these words into your heart, if I remember correctly. Do not try to save. I don't know. She says, "Don't try to save me. Seek the Dawn Shard for your own." So like, I don't know how she thought Juden was gonna get a Dawn Shard. But she said she does warn him, "Do not value my life over your own," which of course he's going to ignore, because that's his sister telling him. He's like, "No, I would never do that." And if we look at only chapters 1 through 14, that is the only warning he gets, not to accept the other's offer. If we take all the events as canon, then he has received several warnings. Audric, don't do that. Don't get possessed by the other. And like, I don't think he specifically said that in the event, but he pretty much would have warned him. Crom directly warned him, "Do not get possessed by the other, you'll destroy the flippin' world." So yeah, in all of the events, he has had several warnings. So if the events are canon, he's had several warnings, and whoops, ignored them anyway. Which leads me to think that like, there are a couple outcomes here that could be possible. Either A, he lied to everyone when he said he wouldn't do that, which is kind of unlikely. It's kind of out of character for him. So here's the other thing I'm thinking, is that when he goes to face the other, like, they're storming the castle. Like in chapter 14, they're going for it. They know that they are going to the throne room. But what is Juden's plan from the get-go? Like, what plan does he have? What is he going to do? How is he going to defeat the other to save his sister? We have no build-up, no setup for anything that he is planning once he gets to the throne room, other than demanding that the other gives him his sister. So, Either he has no plan and is an absolute idiot, and this was poorly written, or he has a plan, and it is to sacrifice himself, which would tie into all of the events, like being canon, is that he knows that this will work. He knows that offering himself to the other will get his sister back. Which, yeah, will doom the world, but, like, his sister will be free. And he trusts that, like, his sister and his friends can, like, stop the end of the world, you know, like a good old anime, like, and then the world ends. Because, yeah, and that's what basically happens in, like, Fractured Futures and all the other things, is he destroys the world. Yeah, I don't think Juden is a liar. Yeah, he says there's no point in a peaceful war without Zethia. So, like, people say, like, why would he doom the world? And, like, his only character motivation for the entire story is saving Zethia. That's the whole thing, except in events when they go to the beach for a week. But, like, in the main story, his sole motivation is saving Zethia. Let's go through it. So in Chapter 1, she gets kidnapped. In Chapter 2, they're figuring out what's going on. They have no idea what's going on. The Empires just showed up. Emil's, like, trying to kill him. What the heck? He's making dragon pacts. In Chapter 3, Zethia's at the volcano. Let's go save her. Ends up making a dragon pact with Mim. Arguable mistake. Chapter 4, he's like, okay, we need to save Zethia. Let's get stronger. Let's go make another dragon pact. And then Emil's there, and Jupiter's like, this one amuses me. Fight to the death. And then he doesn't kill him. And then Chapter 5, he's like, okay, Zephia's at the Binding Ruins. Let's go save Zethia. Chapter 6, okay, we need to figure out how to save Zethia, but oh wait, Valux is at the doorstep. Let's defend ourselves. Chapter 7, we need to get stronger to go save Zethia. Let's go to the Aquapolis and make allies. Chapter 8, we need to get stronger to go save Zethia. Let's go see Leonidas and make allies. It fails. Chapter 9, we need to get stronger to go save Zethia. Let's go see my sister who just sent me a letter. It works. Chapter 10, we're being summoned to, I can't remember what the place is called, but let's go figure it out because supposedly Zethia is going to be there and all the siblings, and we're going to figure out what's going on. And then we get a lore dump. And, also Alberius is there for some reason. And then, let's see. Chapter 11, I have no idea what's going on in Chapter 11. It has nothing to do with the overarching plot, but it had some fun levels. Chapter 12, let's go save Zethia. We're strong enough, we're going to save Zethia. And then they push, and then, Fairy shows up and is like, but void dragons, and I'm a third party, and I'm doing my own thing. And then it's a cliffhanger. It's a very nice cliffhanger that gets instantly resolved in Chapter 13. That was kind of sad. And I'm like, okay, well, Fairies is doing something, and we need to put a stop to it before we save Zethia. So, slight side mission. Chapter 14, let's go save Zethia. So, literally the entire main campaign is him leading up to save Zethia. Every single chapter has let's save Zethia, or let's stop something from stopping us from saving Zethia. So, yeah. Pardon the, 5-minute rant about the story, but that is his character motivation. Is to save Zethia. So, again, going into the throne room to face the other, what is his plan? Because here's another thing. I'm going to touch now on the complaints I've seen with Elisan as a character. So, her whole thing was like, oh man, she's like Juden's right hand, and she just gave up Zethia to whoever. So, in this case, I see it one of two ways. The writers are really, really bad, or they're really, really good. There's no in between. Because either they're really bad, and they're just like, oh yeah, let's just take all our character development and throw it away. But the other thing is that they've been hinting at this for a while. So, we know from, I can't remember which interlude it was. It was maybe the Chapter 12 interlude. As 12 or 13? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Chapter 12 interlude. Whichever interlude it was, when Harl shows up and shows Zethia the secret, shows Elisan the secret of the royal family, and it's not revealed to us what it is yet, but he specifically shows her the secret and starts instilling doubt. So this is where it begins. This is the start of a growing doubt. And this is not just a throwaway thing, because they come back to it in every single interlude, is that she's having doubts am I doing the right thing? What is the legitimacy of the prince? And so, the fact that they keep coming back to it focuses, this is a big deal to her. Because, yes, she's been with the prince. Yes, she knows he's a good person. But it's also important to remember that she has been raised by the Ilian Church since she was a child. She has been with the Ilian Church much longer than she has been with Juden. And she was raised by the Ilian Church to think that the dragon blood, like the royal line, is the royal line. That is it. They're the royals. And another point I would like to throw in here is we know from the chapter 13 interlude, the church is very good at manipulating people. Because like they had like that one bishop, I think he was, like had the whole people like, yes, I know it's so sad that our local priest person died. I'm so sorry. He was a close friend. And then he goes in the back and was like, I can't believe it's so hard to kill him. So like we know that the church puts up like a falsetto and convinces people of certain things that are right. So I have no doubt that they could have convinced Elasan like, oh yeah, the royal line, they're the royals. No one else can be royal. Like it's specifically them. They have the dragon blood. They pass it on. So, and yes, obviously Juden has dragon blood, and that's something she would have had to consider. But how does he have dragon blood? Because here's another thing to consider. Is he a royal from a different country? Like, could that be the start of an invasion? Could like they use that against Alberia if he takes the throne? There's a lot of points to consider. It's not so cut and dry. But the important thing to realize is that they have called attention to Elasan's doubt multiple times. And I'm gonna hatch up on the chat real quick so I'm not just an echo chamber like talking to myself here and I get some other viewpoints in. Let's back up a little bit. Alright, yeah, in High Zodiarc's Dragon story, spoilers for that, Zodiarc stopped him while he was leaving the Haldom to rescue Zethia on his own. That's a good point. Yep, Juden is willing to take any bargain and brave any trap if there's even a slight hope that Zethia lives. The rest will be figured out later. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, chapter 11, Interludes, when Harl told Ellie about the secret. Yeah, so it was chapter 10 when Harl found the secret. I was pretty sure that was it because chapter 10 was like the huge reveal of Alberius, and I remember the reveal that he found some information on the royal family happening shortly after that. When you put it like that, it makes me understand why the event story more than the main campaign has better, more interesting characters and better motivations. Yeah, Fractured Futures is hands down my favorite event. Like, not only did it have a really interesting lore dump, more so than any other event, but it also had the most fun boss fight in the game, hands down, which was Kronos Nyx. Yeah, definitely think Elasan knows something more to the Juden not being the heir, I think. There's something more that has been... Yeah, there's definitely something more that hasn't been revealed yet. Another point I would like to bring up is when she takes Zethia outside and she is approached by... I believe we know from the voice of the person talking to her that it was Mr. Mysterious, the black-haired guy. That it was him in person talking to Elasan. Now, I feel like if it wasn't important, that they would show us what happened. Like, he would, like, approach her and be like, forfeit your life or give me the girl, like, whatever. But no, like, Elasan, for some reason or other, yields to him and doesn't do it in a fight. It doesn't result in a fight, because if it was in a fight, she would have probably gotten injured because she would have lost, and the others would have noticed. So for some reason or other, she yields the Auspex. But it's also important to note that Mr. Mysterious says he told her that they would be heading north at the end of the chapter. Okay, I'm going to be right back because I've been talking for so long, my throat's getting dry. I'm going to go fill my water. So chat amongst yourselves in the chat for a moment. I have returned. What did I miss? A lot of chat. Oh yeah, Ellie has become the Grand Paladin by this point, which is true. Let's see, I can't remember. I know there's a chain of links that point to her being the Grand Paladin. Right. So, we know from the interlude in chapter 13 that Ciela is canon to the main story now. We know from chapter 14 that the Agito introductions are canon before chapter 14. And we know from Ciella's introduction, she addresses Elisan as the Grand Paladin. I'm pretty sure that was it. So she's definitely the Grand Paladin by this point. And yeah, like, she's the Grand Paladin, which means adhering to the rules. Thank you for that. Yeah, Juden is definitely a flawed protagonist. It's like, his flaws haven't become super apparent until this chapter where he's like, okay, Other, I accept your offer. It's like, no one thought he would do it because, like, he's been such a good leader up to this point, but that's just it. He's like a bard with, like, 30 charisma. It's like, just the charisma and the people person flow around him and no one realizes he actually doesn't have a plan. His plan is to save his sister. It's like, we need a plan of attack. I have a plan. Attack. That was from Avengers, I think. Yeah, and you're right. The Other offered him peace in chapter 10, but he says, no, I want my sister back. So he already in chapter 10 said, no, I pick my sister over peace. So that's a precedent there that we've been overlooking. Let's see. Was it weird that Ellie just stand there and does nothing? No, because the identity of the whoever that dark-haired guy was is important. So there's two big theories. Fun story. My original theory for chapter 14 before it came out is at the end of chapter 14 we're going to get future Zethy, and she's going to come back and be like, guys, I need your help to fix my universe. And then we're going to hear laughter from behind her, and we turn around and it's Juden from her future, and he's like, ha ha ha, you fool, you have let me in. But like, that didn't happen. So one of my initial theories was that the dark-haired individual was possessed Juden from her world because we know their outfit can change, but I don't think that's the case. Specifically because that's not how Dawn Shards work. Unless he has one of his own, but also because of his interaction with Elisan. Elisan would not yield Zethia to an other possessed Juden. Like, that's not happening. Let's see. I'll continue that thought in a moment. I still need to get caught up on the chat. Let's see. Yeah, there is question whether the fifth man is the Agito boss or not. I need to... Hold on, someone messaged me on Discord. No, that's in everyone. Someone pinged everyone. Don't do that. Don't ping everyone. It's not good. Alright. Let me pull up the image real quick. Yeah, this one. Alright, here are the Agito silhouettes. Can I pull up this separately? I can. Here are the twins. So, there's something very important to notice here, is that the artwork for the twins does not match the original artwork for the silhouette. It does for Volk, it does for Ciela, and it does for Kayan. So initially I thought Ciela was some type of chimera with like horse hooves and a bird wing on her arm and like sylvan ears. But it turns out that the hook down here is the bottom part of her bow, the feathers here are part of her dress, and that the arced part here is her hair. So I wasn't looking at it in 3 dimensions. But the twins have changed. For instance, you'll notice that like their legs are pointed apart here, whereas in the current artwork, like their legs are much closer together. Their like arms are extended to reach each other, where they're like holding each other's hands here, and they're not holding their weapons, as well as the masks being on the inner side between them as opposed to the opposite side away from them. So, with the twins, the artwork has changed since their reveal, which is interesting. So I don't doubt that the Shadow Agito, the last one, could have had a design change between the reveal and what it is now. So the 5th Agito, I think, could be Mr. Darkhair. So like I have very little doubt that Darkhair or Blackhair is the Agito's leader. Whether he is an Agito is up to debate. But if he is the leader and he has black hair and we haven't had a reveal of the Dark Agito yet, like those cards are lining up. So it is possible that like this silhouette might be reused as an asset for his phase 2. So who knows? So my idea for character foil. So I was an advocate, and you can check the Discords I'm on. You can search this up and find the evidence that the twins would be a character foil to Laxie. I said Laxie is 2 souls in 1 body. The twins would be 1 soul in 2 bodies, which has been confirmed for us that the twins are 1 heart, 2 bodies. That's what their the character introduction says on the page. So my theory for the Dark Agito is he's going to be a character foil not directly to Cleo, but he's going to be like a Dark Alberius. So like Cleo's backstory heavily revolves around Alberius and serving him. So basically it's going to be a dark ruler, a dark like corrupted version of Alberius, which would make sense if the other theory comes true that the black hair person is the lost heir, the real 7th heir. So the official records say that he died to worm scale, or the official wording was passed into Ilia's arms, but there could be some things we don't know about, like they gave the dead body to Finn Lorda in exchange for like what we currently have as Juden, and like she did some dark magics to revive him or something. But yeah, so we don't know the circumstances yet, but he calls Zethia his sister, which is very, very important, which is like that's where the 2 theories come from. Either he's a Juden from a different timeline, or he is the real 7th heir. Also, if he's the real 7th heir, then what Elasan has been struggling with would instantly click with her, because he's like, I am the 7th heir. I did not die. I have legitimacy to the throne. Give me the Auspex, who is my sister. Let's see. Catching up on text. I don't think there's going to be a 6th Agito boss. They have a kind of a thing with their 5s going on. Is Valux dead? I don't think Valux is dead. There's no way they would kill Valux. So here's the thing. I am still expecting the siblings to be fights later in the game. My initial thought was like we're gonna have to fight them kind of like we fight the Agito, but I think it's gonna be more like a High Dragon trial scenario where it's like show me your strength, and it's gonna like have really interesting, unique mechanics for like each of the ones. And so like. Brief tangent here for the design of the twins fight, because I love the design stuff. Valux will be focused on pure raw DPS. To survive, you're going to need a defense unit and a healer. Let's see. Chell will be focused on like underhanded tactics, like let's say debuff zones. I also think it'd be really fun if an enemy could dispel buffs from you. So like strength buff, gone. Defense buff, gone. Energy buff, gone. Attack rate buff, gone. Like, I think that would be really interesting and really incentivize not getting hit. So, one of the things I thought for the twins would be really interesting if, like, one of them had, like, a debuff zone. Kind of like how Xena's skill 2, when you use it, it circles around her. Like, and kind of like Kion's battleground is around him. I think it'd be really interesting if one of the twins had, like, a strength down zone of, like, 50% around them. Not something huge, like a little bigger than a plague radius around them, and like melees can't get close to them. However, the other one is wide open, and then at certain points the twins will have a choreographed move where it swaps from one twin to the other, and so melees have to swap. Meanwhile, ranged units can attack anyone. I think that'd be a really cool mechanic. The twins have so much potential for how the fight can be designed. Give me a second while I take a drink. Alright, but yeah. So, shoot, I had a point. The sibling fights. Do you want to traumatize players? Yeah, no, fun story. Back in the day, I actually had the idea for High Jupiter's Electron Outburst before the fight came out. That's like, what if there was a second blast, like a second opening blast partway through the fight, and if you could kill before then, like it would reward speed clears with heavy DPS, or you could bring a healer and heal through it, or heal up to it. And what we ended up getting was High Jupiter with Glio speed clears and healer runs. So, also, I've been, the freeze ray that CL uses is a mechanic I've been expecting for a long time. But, yeah, no, I love designing different mechanics and seeing how they play out. Before I get back to the siblings on the twins real quick, I've seen, like, a lot of people trying to predict what they're going to turn into. And, like, there are butterflies flying around them, which is, gave some people the idea that it might turn into a butterfly, especially with, like, the folds of their clothing. But, like, one of the things I've noticed with all the Agito is that their mask or headgear points to what they become. As, like, I guess they're articles of clothing as a whole. So, with Volk, he has the mask with the fangs, so he becomes a wolf. Kayan has, like, the eyepiece with the horns. He becomes, like, a boar. Ciela has the mask that covers her eyes, and, like, it doesn't protrude from the front, but if you look at it face on, it looks like a beak. And, like, she had the feathered dress, and I thought it was a bird. So, she's kind of birdie. With the twins, I'm actually thinking it might be a beetle, based on the masks. Maybe, like, I don't know, something with wings, because the arm pieces, but, like, they seem to be based heavily on Oni, so I can't say for sure, but a beetle is what comes to mind when I look at, like, the butterflies and think of, like, a bug type design. But anyway, back from that tangent, back to the other tangent, which is the sibling fights. So I think Emil would make a fun sibling fight if he, like, was very cowardly and, like, had a lot of summons, like summons troops, and they just keep, like, summoning troops, and you have to fight those off before they get, like, way too heavy. And then let's see who else we got. Valux. We already have a Valux fight in chapter 6. So he could be, like, balanced. He could be a big area of effect, heavy hit type stuff. And then I don't know how he'd have a Faris fight. I don't know what he would do specifically. I feel like he would be an equivalent to High Mercury with his really high defense because of his worm scale. But, like, for the mechanic that they could all share, like, they all have dragon packs except Emil, that loser. So they could, for their overdrive, turn into a dragon, and when they break, lose dragon form. Or they could have a phase 1, phase 2 like the Agito. Someone else, I can't remember who it was, on one of the Discords also suggested that fairies could be a dragon drive unit, which would be pretty cool. And, like, so here's the other thing I'm thinking with the sibling fights, is rewards. So with the Dragon Trials and the Agito, they're currently rewarding us with more and more powerful weapons, and that just, it's a circular loop. So the best thing we got was with the Expert Dragon Trials, where completing one Dragon Trial allowed you to make a stronger weapon for a different one, and you could progress in, like, a circle. Like, if you defeated High Mercury, you could make a weapon to face High Brunhilde, which could make a weapon to face Jaime Gartzimer, and it was, like, a nice step-by-step, like, unlocking, quote-unquote, the next level. And there was a progression to it. With the Agito weapons, however, it's a circular loop. Like, you defeat Volk, you get an Agito weapon. What do you use it for? Volk, which you just cleared a whole bunch to get the weapon? Okay. And, like, the counter argument to that is you use it for events, but we get, like, one hard event per event quest, and that's only on raids right now. We only get the Omega 2 raids. So there's, like, no hard content for veterans. And I get that they're being casual friendly, but if they're going to be casual friendly, they shouldn't give us so much blasted strength. So the question is, how do you make the sibling fights engaging? Now, here's the thing. Like, how do you make it so people want to play these again and again and again, as opposed to once and, like, get a new weapon? So here's the thing. You play a sibling fight once. You get sibling materials. You use it to unlock the character. 4-star, 5-star, doesn't matter. Probably 5-star. Now, you have this character. Well, why would you play the fight anymore? Because their unbind material, at least for the different layers of their mana circle, if not for the different nodes of their mana circles as well, you need the material dropped from their fight. So with a High Dragon, for instance, it's 5 orbs to unlock them, and then 120 orbs per unbind from there on. So what if we got a sibling? It's 5 orbs to unlock them, or 5 drops to unlock them, and then 120 of the rare drops per level of the unbind. And so, okay, well, why do I build this character if I got... Oh goodness, my stream is warning me something. I'm going to hope that's okay and keep talking. You let me know in the chat if my quality has dropped significantly. My screen is not moving, so that shouldn't be a problem. But basically, so why would you upgrade these units? Like, okay, so I unlocked Chell. Why would I build her? Say she's a wind unit, for instance. Why would I build her when I have, like, Max Agito Hawk as well as 3 other amazing units? Well, here's the thing. What if they all had unique co-abilities? So, basically, they don't need to have unique co-abilities so much as rare co-abilities. So, like, crit damage, for instance, would count as a rare co-ability. And I brought this up with some of my friends on Discord last night, and their argument was, okay, but if, like, someone wailed for a crit damage co-ability, wouldn't they be upset if we suddenly got a welfare crit damage co-ability? And the argument isn't... It's like, well, yes, they did wail for it, but the other argument is they've had it up to this point. We need to account for time. So, attack rate co-ability, yeah, that was one of the years I had, and it would be absolutely busted. But yeah, so we have to account for time. So, like, nowadays, you would never use an ingots to unbind a 5-star core weapon, because you could make a dragon weapon or a chimera weapon, and it would just be better. Not to mention chimera weapons are easier to make. So, what about the people who max unbound core weapons before dragon weapons came out? Well, even though the first unbind of that weapon did not go to waste, what about the further unbinds? I would argue that those also didn't go to waste, because, for instance, if you max unbound a weapon with ingots back in January, February 2019, you still have all that time between maxing the weapon and the next weapons coming out. You have all those limited events that happened that you would have been able to clear the master difficulty, the hardest difficulties with those weapons. Like, I know, for instance, the first run of Under the Big Top, I barely cleared the Nightmare, whatever the hardest challenge battle level was. I barely cleared it. And, like, people who, like, invested more heavily into their light weapons would have been able to clear it. But, that's actually not true. We had, like, 6 poison res units, and only a few of them were, like, full poison res. That's why that one was hard. Anyway, bad example. So, because time is a consideration, like, because we have limited time events, investing in things earlier on allows you to clear those events until we get easier means of clearing things. So, like, what about people who cleared Mercurial Gauntlet way back before we got, like, Agito weapons? Well, they got their reward with monthly Eldwater. So because you can clear something in the past, it has bolstered your stance now because you got the rewards for it back then. Alright, so, yeah, as for what the co-abilities could be, they could be anything. Like, they could be just any of the... Like, anything that isn't a common co-ability. So, all of the standard 8 co-abilities, throw them out the window. And so, like, yeah, we could get attack rate. We could get buff time. We could get force strike. We could get crit damage. We could get Juden's co-ability for all I know. And so we could just get any amount of new or rare co-abilities, and that would give us a reason to farm the fight and invest in it. And now here's the other thing. So that does put, unlike the weapons, that does put a limit on the amount you would farm. So, like with Agitos, for instance, you make a weapon, you max unbind it. Well, you still have 7 more weapon classes you can work on. However, you only have 7 more weapon classes you can work on. So the question then becomes, like, would individual nodes require, like, the unbind materials to unbind as well? I don't know. Basically, make it so that you want the co-ability, you gotta farm for it. But you can farm for it, and it's free. Which would be nice. Okay. I think I've finished talking about all my points on that, so I'm gonna pull up my agenda and see what I haven't talked about yet. Alright, so I talked about why Juden made his choice. I talked about why Elisan made her choice. Right, Harl. I haven't talked about Harl yet. So Harl's planning something. It was pointed out by fairies in the EX chapter that Harl very blatantly overlooked a ton of things in chapter 14 and basically let Juden stroll right in. So Harl, we know from the Wormprint Worthy Rivals that Leaf is he's the captain of the Royal Guard, and Harl's the captain of the Imperial Guard. So Harl commands the army in Sol Alberia, while Leaf commands the White Sparrows, and is basically kind of like Alberian Secret Service. They like directly defend the royal family. And when the royal family split up after, the other took over, Leaf eventually decides to side with Juden. And I'm gonna have light spoilers for Gala Leaf's adventurer story. So basically, every single time Harl has attacked, has been kind of a feint. So like, some like time step when we talked about Juden or summarize things. This video should go up on my channel. Oh gosh, it's already 120 minutes long. This is what I was afraid of, is just becoming a long video of just random pieces everywhere. But basically, shoot, my point just left. Right, every time Harl has attacked, it's been a feint. It's been fake. It's like, so the first time is in chapter 2, where he's like, haha, I'm here and I'm against you now, goodbye. And then like, in one of the first events we got the Hypnos raid, and it was like, yes, I am here and I am attacking you, and I have captured your dragon, and I have manipulated your friend, and I am so evil. And then they defeat Hypnos. Is like, oh, what a shame. Well, toodaloo, I'll attack you next time. And he's like, that's it. He's not upset. He's just gone. And then he's always sucking up to the other. Like, he's like, oh, but your will is mine, and I will see your will done, and I will inform the knights that you are the empress now. And like he's doing that. So. And then the spoiler for Gala Leaf's story, turn off your microphone for like 20 seconds, or whatever you're listening with for 20 seconds, while I spoil this. In the last 2 chapters of Gala Leaf's story, Harl attacks the Halidom, and it's like, haha, but it was a feint, and you split up from the main force, and I'm actually here to kill the White Sparrows and kill you. And Leaf's like, what? No, that cannot be. And then Juden shows up, he's like, but I knew that you were outsmarting him, so I outsmarted you with the outsmarting. And it's like, oh, I've been foiled again. Well, it was a nice try. Goodbye. See you next time. And so, like, the entire thing with Harl is like, he's supposed to be a strategic genius. We know he's a strategic genius. He's the captain of the Imperial Guard. So, like, he wouldn't have gotten that position if A, he was a terrible person. Aurelius is not the kind of person to let a terrible person like take over the kingdom like that. And B, like, if he is a strategic genius, he's not just like throwing things around. Like, there's no way he would have risen through the ranks, like, up to his position if he didn't actually possess some level of being a good strategist. So everything he's done is like, it's like moving pieces around the board. So my original theory for why he showed the documents to Elasan was because he also gave the documents to Ciela, but he showed them to Elasan first. And my original theory was in chapter 14, we were going to get to the throne room, and the Agito would show up and be like, haha, but you are all following an illegitimate heir, and Juden has no right to the throne. And then Elasan would be like, that may be true, but he's still a good person, and we trust him. And, like, their whole thing would be, like, to throw Juden off his game with that bombshell of knowledge, but then, like, Elasan would be primed and ready for it because she's been mulling it over. And she knows, like, okay, like, I've decided that even though this is true, I'm going to follow him. And, like, she would have, like, pulled them out, like, no, like, even if what he says is true, we've chosen to follow him because he's a good person and his lineage doesn't matter. And that's not what happened at all, but it was a good thought at the time. But basically, yeah, so Harl is definitely up to something, and it's like, in chapter 14 is like, well, let's see, they're invading the capital, I'm gonna go do what I want to do, have fun stopping them from invading. And the captain's like, wait, what, you're just leaving us? So, and then we know in the EX what Harl does is he goes up and says hi to fairies. So, like, Harl's been kind of a side player in most of the things. Like, we know that he has supported the Empress. Sucking up to her had to have some reason, because otherwise he wouldn't have been, like, next to her so much. So he probably knows like a ridiculous amount about the other, because the other thing that Fairies calls him out is he's an intelligence agent. Like, he knows things. He probably knows as much as Chell does, because Chell has cats. Speaking of which, any character who has a cat in their adventurer art, let one of Chell's spies into the Halidom. Valentine's Ezolith is particularly guilty. But back to Harl, like, he's an intelligence agent. He knows things. Like, he dug up the secret of the royal family. So that's how we learned about Juden. He knew about Baron. Like, very few people know about Baron, but he knew who Baron was. Like, that's a huge plot point. So he's like moving pieces around a chessboard without being on it himself. It's very strange. But like, he knew who Ciela was. He supposedly knows who all the Agito are. And he's not just moving people, he's moving information, which is strange. So he's definitely up to something. I don't think he's just an agent of chaos, and he's using it as a cover because it's an excellent cover because people are believing it. So I think that's all I have to say about Harl. He's definitely up to something. I don't think he's just in it for the chaos, even though chaos is fun. All right. Next big point. This is a small point, but it's a big point. Laxie, in chapter 14. She was only there as a gala advertisement. That upsets me a little bit. Like, I get that, like, her android army is, like, supposed to be, like, a huge bolster to the forces of the army, and, like, they have hearts now, like, Mascula is dripping out to them. Like, it was a nice character moment, but literally as soon as Eden mode happened, she was dropped. She was gone. You know what? This isn't the first time it's happened. What happened to Leaf? Where was Leaf in chapter 14? He was such a big reveal in chapter 13, like, I'm here to fight with you. Yes, let us storm the captain. Then he's gone. He's not in chapter 14. It's literally just gala advertisement, and that's it, and I hate it. It's like, if you're gonna have a gala advertisement character, make them vital to the plot. Like the entirety of the stuff that happened around Laxie was just to make her look good. It's like, yes, look at my army of androids getting you out of a situation. Oh no, you all organic life forms are being affected by this gas. Well, I am not. Allow me to show you my true powers. And like, it's the entire. Like, they could have done other things, like, we're being swarmed by guards, let me activate Annihilation mode, you guys go ahead. Like, that would have been a nice way to drop her out of the story. It's like, she's holding everyone off she's holding everyone off while they go ahead. That would have been a nice, organic way to write her out of the story. But she just kind of stops talking. So, like, and, like, The same thing with Leaf is, like, Leaf was present at the very end of chapter 13, but, like, he was talking about, like, helping spearhead the invasion, and he's not there. Okay, quick point about Alex. Alex was in this chapter. In the opening pan of the nice campfire scene that's very pretty, you can see her sleeve. So she's there. She's not off farming Kion. She's not off taking care of Leonidas. She's with them. A point that I did think up earlier is that Alex is not a warrior, she's an assassin. So it would make sense that she would not be on the main front lines. So, let's see. Yeah, so that's my points with Laxie and Leaf, is while it's okay to have them unlock the new power, this is an anime game after all, like, at least make it organic in the plot, and, like, be consistent with it. Like, that's a worse infraction than Elasan giving up Zethia and Juden accepting the other. Like, that's the worst infraction, because that one hits real life. Alright, what's next? Let's see. Volk and the Agito. So, I have in the past expressed grievances about how Chapter 13 was such a lame chapter. It barely revealed any new lore. Like, we got the fifth heir, and we got how void dragons are created, but that's pretty much it. And then my biggest grievance with it is the gameplay. Most of the levels were reused boss fights. Like, I was honestly fully prepared to do the Void Dragons, like, going in. I knew that the Void Dragons were going to be a part of it because of what happened at the end of Chapter 12. What I was expecting is them to do that gate system where, like, before continuing, you should do this. And, like, I was expecting it to say, like, defeat Void Agni, defeat Void Zephyr, like, on standard. And, like, The problem with that is those are rotational. Like, you can't do those every day. So I understand why they couldn't do that. They could have changed it so that you could, but they instead chose to take up level slots with the Void Dragons. And that just felt bad because it was reused. And looking at it from a developer's point of view, they could have just done that because it gave them more time to work on, say, Chapter 14. Which was very nice. Chapter 14 did have a couple reused fights. Specifically, Manticore and Chimera were reused, which was a little sad. And I'll get into Volk later, but like the castle levels were great. Like, the scenery, the music, the atmosphere was awesome. And like, I liked how the first one was like on the field outside the castle, and they reused the questing theme from Chapter 11. Like, Chapter 11, totally filler. Adds nothing to the story. Laxie and Mascula, okay, cool characters. A little bit of lore, but it doesn't connect to anything yet. Okay. And then they dropped them for Chapter 12. They made like a single cameo. And that upset me a little bit because it's like, okay, we just had an entire chapter about these guys. We're just dropping them like that. So basically, Chapter 11 had really nice levels. Very hard for those. Were nice. It was fun. It was challenging. You needed to bring a healer pretty much. And I actually ran some of them in co-op, specifically the Laxie boss fight. Because it was a very difficult boss fight. My only grievance with that is that you had a whole level before the boss fight. So to get deathless, if someone died in the boss fight, you had to replay the entire level. Which takes me back to the early days of the raid, where the raid boss had a level before it. Specifically, the original the original Fraganoth and the original Hypnos. The boss fight was not just a boss fight. It was a level that led into the boss fight. And it took so long to farm. But basically, the levels themselves, the music was good. The atmosphere was good. It was great. And so in Chapter 14, it's back. The castle scene, great. The combat, great. There's so many units. I actually haven't done it on hard and very hard yet, but I'm excited to. And so, like, then we get to the end where Foundry actually pointed this out in his video, that we're fighting Volk in the throne room, and it is very scenic. So reusing the Volk's fight is actually something I'm okay with, because it's a more complex fight. Volk actually makes sense for a final boss. And not once. We fight both of his forms, standard and expert. So this, like, I get on a real world mechanics perspective, this introduces casual players to Volk's Wrath, so that they can, like, try it, like, later on. And it's honestly like a prelude difficulty for both types. I'm sorry if I haven't been reading chat much, but like, I just have a lot of points I want to cover. Hypnos is a raid boss. You might recognize him from the recurring Astral raid. He's like the second most popular one after Velfar. Can we seriously get another water raid boss? Like, it's been literally forever when we've gotten one. Hypnos was on, shoot, what was it called? Trying to remember it from memory without looking it up. Something Friendship. It was the one with Melsa. I'm looking it up. Oh, right, I already have it. Nope, that's wrong. That's the wrong thing. Hypnos. Come on. Bring it up. No, this is just the enemy stats. This isn't the event. I don't know. I'm sure one of you said it in the chat by now. Gosh, what was it called? Okay, yeah, I give up. It's not super pertinent. Kindness in captivity, that was it, yeah. But yeah, so back to what I was talking about, the Agito, right? The boss at the end of the chapter. So having Volk as the final boss was very nice. It felt like a final boss to a chapter, as opposed, like, even though it was a reused fight, it felt like a final boss. So like, as opposed to like chapters that end with like a manticore, for instance, feels a bit like, I think chapter 10 ended with a manticore and it was kind of like meh. And like, I know chapter 9 ended with that mechanical boss from that's a boss in some of the events, and that one's fine because that is a limited boss. So like, we only ever see that boss in as a boss fight in certain raid battles. So that boss is a unique boss for most players who haven't done those fights. So let's see. So yeah, as opposed to moving on to Vulcan, the lore. So we still don't know much about the Agito. I remember when they were revealed, like, they said, like, this Agito is like yeah, over in the picture of the silhouettes I have here, Okada said, like, who are these groups? They're rising up against to fight the prince for some reason. And they're very vague about the reasoning. And I think that plays into, like, we still don't know much about the Agito. Like, we know that each of them has their own motivation, but, like, Volk talks about, like, those strong will always trample on the weak, which sounds like it would clash very heavily with Kayan's I'm going to be the strongest one in the world, and I'm going to do it on my lonesome. Like, those sound like really clashing ideals. So, as I still don't know what the Agito are. Like, is Agito like a group? Is it an enhancement? It's not a race, because each of these individuals is a different race. I would surmise that Volk is human. Ciela's Sylvan. Kayan is Keelan. The twins might be Keelan. They have a single horn. No, they're not Keelan because they don't have goat legs. I really don't know about the twins. So, let's see. Yeah, so we don't know much about the Agito yet. What is the Dragalia? Alright, so Dragalia is... It's like the relationship between humans and dragons. It's why it's called Dragalia Lost. And in chapter 2, the Windworm, Megardsamur tells Juden about it. I believe it's in a text dialogue called Dragalia Lost. And he tells him that, like... So basically, I'll go through the history real quick for all of you who haven't studied the lore as thoroughly as I have. And that's not a bragging thing. That is me having looked through the lore to study up on this to make sure I'm getting, like, every little fact right. Is that basically 1,000 years ago was the first war of binding. Dragons and humans were at war with one another. And there was no end in sight. Dragons were super powerful, and humans wanted an edge in battle. So what the humans did, like they do, is they summoned a demon, the other, Morsayati, to help them fight. And so, this is probably where Morsayati gets his goal of kill all the dragons, is that's what he was summoned to do. He was summoned by the humans to kill the dragons. And so Morsayati, I believe, makes it clear in chapter 10 that his goal is to kill dragons, or subdue them all. Like, subduing dragons will work. Like, it's either kill or subjugate. Win the war is what he's living for. So they summon Morsayati, and that turns out to be a horrible mistake. And the humans are like, oh shoot, what do we do? And so then we have Ilya, right? So Ilya, I think, from what I can tell, is the Grestaean equivalent. Grestaea is the world of Dragalia Lost. Is the Grestaean equivalent of Jesus. So basically, it's kind of strange how they both, like, worship Ilya as a goddess, but she's also, like, a human. So the only parallel I can find is, like, a Grestaean equivalent of Jesus. So it's also interesting to note that the Ilian Church in Dragalia Lost is heavily, heavily based on Christianity and takes a lot of things specifically from Catholicism. So I was rereading Estelle's story for How to Play Estelle this past week, and I noticed she literally quotes the Bible in, like, chapter 4 of her story, like, straight out of the Bible. And then in Templar Hope's story, he mentions that he was doing confessions, and I believe that confession is a uniquely Catholic thing, or maybe like some other denominations. I'm not sure, but like it's evident that the Ilian Church is heavily based on Christianity, which would imply that Ilia is this world's version of Jesus. It's the goddess taking a human form and coming to save the world. On that note, the dragons also have like a separate existence. So they would like that they're like a separate set of sentient beings. So like in our world, the real world, the only set of sentient beings is humans, as far as we know. But in Dragalia Lost, there are humans and dragons. They're two separate races, but they both have sentience. And like I guess there are also like, you know, Keelan, Sylvan, all those, but those are all like humanoids versus dragons, which can be humanoid, but like they take that form. Because dragons can shapeshift. So basically, let's see. Right, so in the first War of Binding, we have Ilia, right? So basically, a demon was summoned, and Ilia has now come into the world to stop the demon. Teams up with Elysium, the Holy Worm, which is basically, we don't know much about it, but it would be some parallel to Ilia for the dragons. And the two of them create a pact, and this is the first dragon pact. It creates what is called, Midgardsormr calls it the Primal Pact Shard, because, as we know, and it's a very overlooked detail even though we see it every time we summon a dragon, when you make a pact with a dragon, you make a pact shard. It's a physical object that represents the pact between the human and the dragon. And so Midgardsormr says over time the Primal Pact Shard decayed and fell apart or something along those lines. I don't know, like it's in chapter 2, it's near the end. Read it if you want. I'm pretty sure it's called Dragalia Lost. But he explains that like over time it decayed. And it no longer exists. However, the power of the Primal Pact Shard trickled into the blood of humans and gave them the ability to make pacts, which is where dragon pacts come from, regular dragon pacts. And as far as we know, those with the blood of the dragons, which comes from the Primal Pact Stone, like gives them the ability to make a single dragon pact, except for very few cases, which I would guess is the Holy Worm's chosen one. Based on the fact that we know that Juden is the Holy Worm's chosen one, and Alberius could have also been a Holy Worm's chosen one. That's a theory. But basically, Juden turned into Elysium at the end of chapter 1. So this could have been like the moment he became the Holy Worm's chosen one. We're not sure. It's still not explained, but we do know that that was Elysium. Let's see. Wouldn't humans have doomed themselves if all dragons died? Because on Volfar's event said that if they killed all the dragons, mana would go out of control, because that's another thing to consider that their world has that our world doesn't, is everything is governed by mana. Some humans can manipulate mana, but not nearly on the axis that dragons can. So, killing all the dragons would be a huge mistake. This might have been one of the reasons they realized, oops, we killed too many dragons and now the mana's out of balance. We need to stop this war. And then they can't stop Mor-Sayati because he's like, no, you hired me to kill the dragons. I'm going to do my job. And so, like, we need to stop him. And so then you got Ilia and Elysium who make the first dragon pact. And so then they team up. Other humans start making dragon pacts, and that's the first War of Binding. They bind Mor-Sayati. And he is sealed away for 700 years. Then we get to the second War of Binding. Something releases Mor-Sayati. We're not sure what it is, but something releases him. In the second War of Binding. And so basically, Alberius is like, oh shoot, the demon's out. I need to stop this. And so he goes around making dragon pacts, and he manages to make several dragon pacts. Whether he makes one with Brunhilde or not is unknown. She lends herself to the cause, but not wholeheartedly. And it's also important in Chapter 10 that she was not part of the final battle. She didn't show up to the place where he finally sealed Mor-Sayati to fight. It's also really unclear why the dragons didn't help storm the castle in Chapter 14, because that was like the whole reason. Like, it's like the others like, hey, let me possess you. You have so many dragon packs. And Yuden's like, yeah, that's a good question. Looks behind him. Where are my dragon pacts? Anyway, so like, yeah, every time you get a dragon from the gacha, it's basically the formation of a pact stone. Even if it's a dupe, that the whole idea is that you're forming a new pact with a dragon. But yeah, so in the second War of Binding, Alberius builds up dragons and he fights Morsiati and he defeats him back. And then I don't need to explain the rest of this because it's explained in chapter 10. But paraphrasing, he binds Elysium again by sealing. He binds Morsiati again by sealing Morsiati in his bloodline, which allows Morsiati to possess his descendants later down the road. Which is actually another tick in the idea that Juden would be a descendant of Alberius, even if he's not a direct son of Aurelius, because he can be possessed. No, that's right. Yeah, so he seals them away. He takes his sword and he breaks it into many pieces, and those become the sacred shards, which they show up in chapter 1. They keep away fiends. Morsiati steals them all, and it's never touched on again. Oops. And so then, see, I had another tangent to go off of. Right. Another point I wanted to bring up really quick when I was talking about Juden getting possessed is why in chapter 5, why did the other take Zethia to the Binding Ruins? Like, why did he take her there? Why didn't he just possess her the moment, like, they showed up? And so my theory, and the location is the only evidence of this, my theory is that that room is the only place where the other can possess an unwilling host in the Binding Ruins. Because the Binding Ruins is also the place where the other first entered the world and possessed Aurelius. So that happened there. In the Binding Ruins, he possessed Aurelius, an unwilling host. And then he takes Zethia there and possesses Zethia, an unwilling host. And so in chapter 14, he's like, okay, so accept, like, let me possess you, or I'll kill everyone and possess you anyway. But if you let me possess you, your sister won't get hurt. And Juden's like, yeah, sure, hit me up. And so my theory is that if the host is willing, he doesn't need to be in the Binding Ruins. Because, like, otherwise he would have killed everyone, kidnapped Juden, taking him to the Binding Ruins, and possessed him unwillingly. Is kind of the way that conversation was going. So, like, that's actually another argument for why Juden went along so willingly, is because, like, he knew that if he said no, the other would overpower him and kill all his friends, potentially harm Zethia as well, and kidnap him anyway and take him to the Binding Ruins. Which begs the question, what was his plan? And, yeah, why didn't he use the dragons? He has at least 5 canon dragons, plus, like, several dozen non-canon dragons, or potentially canon dragons. Wait, how many dragons? Okay, so I know Midgardsormr is, like, the only one that appears in adventurer stories for spoiler reasons, like Amane's, for instance. And Brunhilde, Mim also appears in stories, because she's, like, one of the main cast now. But, like, we know Jupiter, Zodiac, and Mercury are also canon. So, like, I'm trying to think, like, which dragon showed up. Because I was thinking of Audric's story. In chapter 1 of Audric's story, Pele, Sylvia, and Phantom all show up. But that's an adventurer story from an event. And, like, it might not be canon to the main event. To the main campaign, so who knows. However, it's an important note that I noted in my original theory video that they are not void dragons in Audric's story, which means they are being manipulated by their pact. But yeah, basically, well, like, you don't want to airstrike the capital. They're not trying to destroy Sol Alberia. They're just trying to, like, recapture it. So yeah. That's kind of like I think that wraps up what I was saying, I hope. I'm going to try and wrap this up by the 2-hour mark, because I don't want people to look at my channel and be like, oh, I wonder what Straight Lace was talking about for 2 hours. Like, if you look at my content, almost all of my videos are less than 5 minutes. Those would be the how to plays. Like, I always try and keep it how to play to, like, 3.5 minutes, so that I don't keep you for too long, and you can, like, have burst entertainment. Guides will be as long as they need to be. Music videos will be the length of a music song. And then whatever else is just whatever, but it's usually short. So this is, like, a huge outlier for me. But I just wanted to, like, explain all the thoughts that everyone has had. Like, kind of consider all the points. Because, like, obviously some people hate Juden for what he did and other people are defending him, but like there's different sets of circumstances that lead to those opinions, and I wanted to cover both of them so we can all make like an apt decision on what's going on here. But the problem is we don't have enough information to know which is correct. So what I think the end goal here is like keep an open mind and hope that the writers know what they're doing. Oh, I do not have 30 mubbed Fubukis. I have 23. Let's see. If Baron was able to make him strong enough to hold Marseille, does that mean anybody in the Dragon Blood could do the same? Baron is still a mystery. We don't know the source of his power. It's decently evident that he was sealed away because of his power, and it's definitely a dark power if it can corrupt dragons, and it's a very powerful power. And Aurelius almost certainly had something to do with it, with the fact that he is Baron's father, and also because Aurelius survived in the alternate timeline, and Baron didn't show up, that means Aurelius knew something about it. Let's see. Yeah, I covered earlier, it's like, yes, Juden was warned no less than like 2 or 3 times that taking Morsayati would doom the world. However, all of that happened in events, and if the events are not canon, then he was only warned once by Zethia vaguely in Chapter 5, where she said, don't value my life over yours, like seek the Dawn Shard for your own, etch this into your heart, stuff like that. So if the events aren't canon, then he was only warned with that, and like, of course, that would lead to the inevitability of him offering himself up, as everyone saw in the alternate timelines. Yeah, I talked about Ellie earlier on, and the points for and against that. Like, I hope I covered everything I wanted to cover. I think I had at least one more point. The mystery character, black hair guy, is next on my list. I did talk about him a little bit, and he's either, in summary, he's either Juden, other Juden from a different reality, in which case I highly doubt Zethia would have yielded Zethia to the other again, or he is the real 7th Scion. Those are the top 2 theories. He calls Zethia his sister, so there's really nothing else he could be. Oh gosh, unless he's a time-traveling Baron. Oh gosh. In which case, that would be funny. If he's a time-traveling Baron, would make my theory that Baron was the leader of the Agito correct. And that would be absolutely hilarious, because that was disproved in Chapter 14, when Baron attacked an Agito. So if all the events were not canon, it means that the main campaign would be canon to the events, but the events would not be canon to the main campaign. Alright, so yeah, on Xena, I covered earlier in the video, in the live stream, like the timelines with Xena, it's really confusing, that I no longer think Xena and Audric are from the exact same reality, but I think they are from a parallel reality that branched into 2 different ones, one where Xena died, and that became Audric's reality, and one where Xena didn't die. Audric may or may not still be alive as Aurelius or Audric, but Xena used the Dawn Shard to project herself into the main campaign. And that's kind of how that's kind of the summary of that. So, like, Kronos went back in time, killed Xena, and then that timeline didn't change. Although it involves parallel realities, which I hopefully explained well enough earlier, because you can't directly alter your... So basically, with parallel realities, you can't directly alter your own timeline, but you can directly alter the past in a parallel timeline, which means another parallel you will directly alter your own timeline, if that makes any sense. I sketched it earlier. Rewatch this once I have it up again, and I'll hopefully explain it. But the big thing with Xena that I am still curious about is the clothing. Because I made a theory a while back that there were 2 future Zethias. Here, I'll pull up the image again. This one and this one. Nope, it was this one, and it was the one I called Full Timeline. All right, so this is my latest theory. That there were two future Zethias. There was no future Zethia appeared. Then this Zethia traveled into the main campaign, became Blue Zethia, and then died when Zodiark killed her or disappeared for good. And then a new Zethia appeared with white clothing, and the main campaign happened. Because after she disappears, after Zodiark hits her, when she comes back, the highlights on her dress are white instead of blue. And we know that this is an important change because there's no way that before that point it would always be blue, after that point it would always be white, and there would be two differently colored, perfectly recolored sprites in the game's files if it wasn't intentional. Whether it's important, it remains to be seen, but I don't think they would intentionally include something like this unless it was important. So, first of all, there's the dress color. So we know from Xena's adventurer story that blue Zethia and white Zethia are the same Zethia. Like, they're both in Xena's past. At some point, I need to reread her story to see where exactly it changes on her end, from blue to white. But the other important thing to consider is that when Morsayati leaves Zethia, sometimes she reverts her clothing back to her original clothing, and sometimes she stays in the other possessed clothing. Why would that change? And like, it was pointed out to me that this might just be if there are two Zethias in the room to have them wearing different clothing, so you know which is which makes sense. Yeah, so that makes perfect sense from a design perspective, so you know who's talking. But at the same time, like, is there a lore reason for it? Like, if you're gonna do something like that, you gotta have a lore reason, and it doesn't have to be something major, but please tell us what it is. Yeah. Like, I'll look into it more and see where it changes and see if I can find any points. So I've hopefully set up this stream correctly, and there's a link to my Discord. It's not very populated right now, but if you guys want to join and chat with me or see what I talk about when I update things, I tend to post things there from time to time. As well as I'm on other Discords of other Dragalia Lost YouTubers like Foundries. I spend a lot of time there. But yeah, so let's see. What was next? Because I was talking about Zethia. So yeah, I already covered Audric and where Fractured Futures would lie in the timeline as well as his things. I've already talked about Event Canon. I've explained the new timeline. I've explained the parallel timelines. I've explained that there's two timelines where Kronos lives or Kronos dies. Let's see. Yeah, and I've explained that Kronos would have to be chasing the Zethia from his reality or a parallel one in order to stop her not from changing the past, but from finding the thing that will change the future. And gosh, like, whenever I say, like, a parallel one, it just means I'm making a jump in time. So instead of, like, I don't know, it goes back. I should just draw this again. Basically, let me draw this again. All right, so these are going to represent timelines. The past is at the bottom. The future is at the top. So let me add this. So let me do that to show the flow of time. All right, so these are all timelines. So I only really need 3 of these. So say that this one right here is your timeline. So you are right here. So that is the present. So the present in this timeline would be up here, and the present in this timeline would be down here. And if you travel between these timelines, you can only move horizontally. But like, there's like infinite branches between these, and say like these are just like, I don't know, 5 hours apart. Say you wanted to affect your own past 5 hours ago. You can't get here. You can't move vertically. You can only move horizontally. So in a perfectly closed time loop parallel system, whenever you move to a parallel timeline to make a change, a different version of you will enter your base reality and make the change. So basically, you have, in a perfectly closed time loop system, you would have altered your past with a different version of you by going to a different timeline, and this one would move too. So then you would make your change. You would spend, like, I don't know, 5 minutes, and then you'd return to your timeline, and then, like, all of these would return. And, like, all of these between all of the branches of all the accurate intervals would remain identical for all of time. And this would be a parallel system. All of these realities are identical. They're just kind of slightly shifted up and down relative to the ones next to them. So basically, if this Kronos wanted to kill Zethia in his past, he would just go kill the Zethia in a different past, and a different version of Kronos would come kill the Zethia in his past. Boom, there you go. Fractured futures. Zethia is dead. Audric is alive. Audric leaves that world. Zethia is not alive in that world. That world is dead. All of these are dead. These are all fractured futures. They're all dead. Everyone died. The end. Like, Fractured Futures, and specifically Audric's story, pulled no punches. Like, everyone died. That being said, like, this really is an anime where someone dies and they just come back later on. It's like, Aurelius dies in chapter 5. Oh, wait, no, this is Audric. He's Aurelius, so he's still alive. And, oh, wait, look, Aurelius is alive in Xena's timeline. So... yeah, so the problem with naming all these Zethias is that technically all of the time-traveling ones are Xena. So there's the Xena that dies, killed by Kronos. There's the Xena that lives, comes to the main campaign. And those are really the only two we care about. So we know that Xena touches all sorts of other realities, and they're all branching. Everyone she goes into, she does something different. All of them branch, and none of them are parallel. So, like, what Xena would be doing is... Let me see if I can draw this real quick. So, this is, like, the main timeline. So, what Xena would be doing is branching this like this. So, like, she would go to, like, I don't know, whatever points in the timeline... and try and make different things, and they would all branch. None of them would be the same. These are all her attempts to change the future. And then one of them succeeds. One of them, she actually... I'm guessing the main campaign is the first one where she sent them to the Binding Ruins. And, like, that's the first time she tried that. And then Aurelius dies. And then Baron gets revived. And then Baron eats the other. Also, Let's mention briefly that Cassandra and Audric are both alive in the main campaign, and they're both single. Just saying. I don't think Possessed Juden made the world jump. He probably could. The other has been shown to have power over rifts, so the other might not even need a Dawn Shard. That being said, like, I don't think other Juden is in the main campaign yet. I don't think that Black Hair is other Juden. My current best theory is that he's the real 7th Scion. Where does the Syndicate fall? If the Syndicate is only shown up in events. If events aren't canon to the main campaign, they're technically not in the main campaign. I'm really thinking how they would do another event with the Syndicate, because Aldred is so instrumental to the Syndicate plotline. Like, I'm gonna kill all the Syndicate. Like, they'd have to bring him back for that story almost, and they couldn't make him welfare again because we already have him. We need a new welfare unit, and I guess they could do they could do a story event. A story event would work. As far as Xena and Audric Castle story, the problem with Audric is if Audric is allowed to meet Xena, they will do the biggest lore dump we have ever seen. And as the developers of the game, Cygames, pretty much can't allow that right now, because they would they literally have every reason to talk about everything we don't know. Which is a problem, because the developers want the developers are very much revealing things like little by little. So they're not just creating new questions and not resolving old things. Like, for instance, the thing that Harl found, the secret he found, was hinted again when he showed to Ellie. And then in the next interlude, they showed it to us, so we knew what it was. And yeah, it created a new question, but it resolved an old one. And it also moved towards Ellie's development of, am I really working for the right purpose? Which I talked about earlier in the video. If you missed it, like, just... it's in there somewhere, I promise. It's been 2 hours. But basically, like, they're not designing it poorly. Like, they're obviously trying to make a well-designed game. There are a lot of flaws with the design in, like, certain aspects. Like, the monetization is a mess because with just monetizing the gacha, the entire model of, like, only spending money for the gacha is putting their entire, like, hope of making money into random chance. Which means one of two things. Either they're not going to make money if all their whales get what they want super fast, or B, the odds are heavily stacked against us, which is also not a reality I want to think about. But, like, things like the design of the fights, Ciela, for instance, I thought was a very well-designed fight. It responded to criticism of, like, Kayan being too easy, Volk being too hard. The hardest part about literally any fight is coordination. Because the one thing that developers, like, the thing that becomes the changing point, like how do you make these fights unique? They follow a sequence every time, right? Well, they've done this in the Agito a lot, is they base the random events and the sequence of events and the things that the Agito does based on players. Because a team of 4 in public rooms and even in pre-made rooms will vary every time you play the game, unless you're playing, like, with a specific group that you always play with. The builds will always be different, even in slight variances. In Volk, when he teleports behind you and does a spin, he targets the person with the lowest percent HP. That's going to vary. It's usually the healer, but it doesn't always have to be. So the person he teleports behind will change. In Kayan and Ciela, they will skip parts of the fight if you deal enough damage. It changes things. It, like, the fight adapts based on the players that join. And that's really interesting. So basically, by designing around the random collection of players, it makes the fight different every time. So the fact that, like fights like Kayan, Ciela, and I don't know if Volk, like, skips moves as well, the fact that they skip moves grants variance to reruns. So it's not just the same fight every time. The cost of that is it makes it harder to learn the fight, because I know with Kayan, like, sometimes you can skip his shield, where sometimes he will just, like, pull it up. Like, if you're, like, a Valux, for instance, like a Galaxy, and you need your Dispel to dispel the shield, but you're used to skipping it, but you don't because your DPS is a little lower than usual, you might not have your Dispel up because you need 2 levels of your charge to Dispel. So it makes the fight harder to learn, but on the flip side, it makes the fight more fun because it changes every time. Monetization has gotten a little bit better, I want to say, with the tomes, and I know they're really expensive, but there's a couple arguments here. A, we don't need them. I hope we get more free ones soon, but, like, we got a bunch of free ones. We got 5 free ones in each one, so that's good to start. We have all the welfare units as free skills, and some of them are really good. Like Ranzel's has Dispel, Juden's has Burn and Dragon Haste. Elisand's is, like, makes her one of the best units in the game. So, like, the design of the game, it has its ups and downs. My biggest issue with the game is that their production of characters far exceeds their production of content. So, like, I made a video a while back. I believe I called it, like, the new unit or something, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got Templar Serena and she's the most powerful unit in existence. And it was a commentary on, like, you can summon the most power crept awesome unit ever, but if the fight ends in 5 seconds, it's not gonna be worth it. It's not gonna be fun. Like, we need content to challenge our units and our builds, and, like, we need a reason to summon new units, and we need content to use them in. Because if I've already cleared everything, like, I know a lot of players already have, like, not a lot of players, but a good number of players already have like a ton of max and bound Augito weapons in like every element. Well, great. What are you gonna use those for? Like, honest question. Like, I get that it was probably fun making them, but now you've hit a stopping point. So there's like nowhere to go from there. And like, I guess they're useful in like events that like limited time events like raids and stuff, but at the same time, all we have for that is the Omega 1 and the Omega 2. That's the only place where that kind of power is useful, and you only clear those once. Maybe again if you need Deathless, but that's it. That's all the power is used for. And the event is specific to one element, which means to get a full team's worth, like for each element, a full team's worth of usage takes 5 events, and these things last like 2 weeks. I'm taking a sip of water. And I've spoken to a lot of people. I've received a lot of different opinions about the time attack. I don't think time attack in itself is a bad idea. I think it was handled very poorly. Because I've talked to people like time attack was definitely the worst part of the game, and I've talked to people like time attack was so much fun. And like, yeah, I get it. It adds a new reason to play the Dragon Trials, to like achieve something, to get on the leaderboards. But I think the way it was handled incentivized stronger players to lock out weaker players. And I myself took like a week to break into the light dark cycle because I couldn't get enough support, enough DPS to just break in. And I wasn't even trying to rank high. I was just trying to rank period. So all like that really killed it for all the casual players. The ones that were playing High Dragon Trials, but like it was compounded by the issue that Expert released at the same time as the Dragon Tier 2 weapons, as the time attack, and as Master. And then the rewards for time attack were heavily incentivizing players like, yeah, you want like the best rewards. So like, I think if they did it again, like give us participation trophies and give epithets to the number 1 players, like don't give them resources to like build stronger units because they don't need those. If they're clearing the top times, they don't need those. Like, it's like if you have the best time, you're already fully invested. A new resource isn't going to do much for you. Anyway, that's that rant. Let's see other things about design. I've heard a lot of complaints about Kayan. These too easy. I made a guide. Not a guide. I made a look back at the history of Shadow Power Creep, and I got a lot of positive feedback from that. And Kayan is like the culmination of it, that he was made easy to kind of balance Shadow, and it made things worse for other elements, and that's just going to take a while to fix. My stamina is fully recovered. I'll deal with that later. But basically, Kayan was too easy for veterans, but it was a nice entry point for everyone else. My only issue with Kayan is that he did not have enough HP. Like, I've seen a lot of people complain that the Battleground was a terrible mechanic, like he shouldn't be taking double damage. Looking at it from a design perspective, the Battleground is not the issue. It's that he did not have enough HP to facilitate the Battleground. Because the Battleground applies a type of movement mechanic to the fight. Like, there's a lot of his moves are cohesive in requiring the player to move. So ideally, you want to be inside the Battleground when attacking him. But sometimes he'll do a purple attack that you cannot dodge, or you can Dragon Tank. And if you cannot Dragon Tank, you have to leave the Battleground. So this is compounded with his move Unbreakable Satellites, which create specified exits to the Battleground that you have to move with and like escape through. So it was kind of like whenever he does like whatever his big purple move is, like you have to maneuver through the Unbreakable Satellites to get outside the ring to take the least damage, or no damage at all if it's just a smaller one. And I thought that was a pretty nifty mechanic. But and then like you want to move back in, of course, once that's over, so you can deal maximum damage. And having him have his shield and giving value to dispel characters was also kind of nifty. But at the same time, like, because he takes double damage, Expert Volk has 8 million HP. Kayan has 9 million HP. That's, if he's taking twice as much damage, that's the equivalent of giving him 4.5 million HP at normal damage. Like, that's pretty low. So yeah, for Master Kion, they're definitely gonna give him like more HP. I wouldn't be surprised if he had at least 20 million. Like, make this guy a tank. Like, I want this fight to take like 4 minutes with our optimized Shadow. Like, if it's so easy to get tier 1 Agito Shadow weapons, make it like the hardest fight in the game. Like, stat-wise. Not like gameplay-wise. Like, the mechanics in Kion are, I'd say they're as balanced as they are in Ciela. Like, they're not complicated. They're pretty easy to understand. Like, dodge the spin attack, like, move out of the battleground for the purples. Like, if someone gets captured, free them. If the orbs appear, you want to break those before he touches them. Don't let him dash into the orbs. Break the orbs before they float into him. Like, it's a very simple, it's a very simple fight. Wait, we're in a maintenance period? No, please tell me that's not true. Oh gosh, no. It doesn't say maintenance. It's letting me move around. I'm just gonna auto some void battles while I continue talking. Wait, why do you think we're in our maintenance right now? Did they announce maintenance? Or is that tomorrow? Alright, Title Chimera, prepare to be autoed with whatever I cleared you with the first time. And I hope it's good enough. Wait, I don't have history? Well, this team's gonna do, I guess. But yeah, so, like, Kion is a well-designed fight with the one caveat that he has too little HP. And, like, that one caveat compounds with the fact that Dark is too strong. Or it's much stronger relative to the other elements. Like, if they just gave him way more HP, it would be a perfect fight. Alright, yeah, hopefully I recently finished max unbinding my Agito bow, so hopefully this fight will take long. But I am starting to wrap up. I don't have too much more to add. I think I covered all the points I wanted to. So if anyone else in chat wants to bring anything else up that I can elaborate on, like, feel free. Wow, that was easy. Okay. I'm back. Oh, yeah, the update. That's not tomorrow, is it? Okay, that's not this reset. The update is next reset. But yeah, I'm super looking forward to the update. I do not have enough team slots. Chapter 15. So I think Chapter 15 is definitely going to reveal to us who Darkhair is. I am definitely looking forward to Ayaha and Otaha. Okay, second anniversary. Here's what we're going to get. We're going to get an event, right? Where Juden time travels to the past. And he's going to go back to the Second War of Binding. And it's going to be a raid battle. Where he fights alongside our welfare unit, Alberius, to fight the other in the Second War of Binding. Who is the raid boss and has a Nyx form. And the event is going to be called Past Pacts. I'll summon for Gala Laxie just because it's going to have regular units on it that are new, and it's just a good value to summon on Gala, period. I summon on every banner, almost every banner, like at least a little bit. So, like, I don't know, when I get a new unit, it means I can A, do a how to play on them, because I record my own footage, and B, I can put them as a recommendation on the team for another how to play unit. So, like, for instance, putting a Zhu Bajie on, who did I put that with? Luis's team? Yeah. So if I hadn't gotten him, I couldn't have made that choice, because I couldn't get footage of it. And I don't outsource footage because resolutions can change, and that would be a hassle to deal with. Will I clear with Fubuki? Fun story. If I'm doing a raid event and I get bored of farming it, I will swap all the dragons on my team for Fubuki. I have 4 level 60 Fubukis. The rest of my max and bound Fubukis are level 1 because there's no point in leveling them up, but I will not sell them. I have at least 8,000 Eldwater worth of Fubukis. I think closer to 9,000. I haven't done the exact math. But I will never sell them because that's one of the biggest things I'm excited for with the update is we get 50 more dragon slots. That's 50 more max and bound Fubukis that I can hold. Yes, you did hear Hawk. I was using Hawk. I liked Hawk before he was cool. He is one of my 3 favorite characters. He has my favorite character by design, Estelle's my favorite character by personality, and Makoto's my favorite character by how he plays. Makoto was also my first 5-star. Gosh, they really need to give us a dragon upgrade system. Like, the 3-star dragons are purely filler. Like, 3-star adventurers can get mana spiraled, and like they can even be 50 noted and have like good abilities, good chain abilities, like they can be useful. But 3-star dragons, in no current sense, can they be better than a 4-star, 5-star dragon? And I don't like that because Fubuki is adorable. Freezing Breath doesn't even inflict freeze. I don't know what team comps will be useful for Master Kion, but I think that if it's a well-designed fight, and it already is, you can use anything as long as you have a Dispeller. It might require a healer, though. If the fight is more long and drawn out, and you don't build Dragon Gauges fast, you're definitely going to want like a Cleo or a Grace on the team. And like, I'd assume like units like Fort would still be really good because they build Dragon Gauge like crazy, and they can just Dragon Tank everything. Look, I'm telling you, if they make a Dragon upgrade system that works like the original weapon system, where you make like 25 Max Unbind tier 1 that upgrade into like 5 Max Unbound, or that so 25 Max Unbound tier 1. That upgrade into 5 Max Unbound tier 2, that upgrades into 1 Max Unbound tier 3. I have almost enough Fubukis to get a Max Unbound tier 3 upgraded Fubuki. Like, think about that. I am like 10 Fubukis, 10 Fubukis short. No, 8 Fubukis short, because I have 2 into the next Unbind. If I get 8 more Fubukis, I will have 25 Max Unbound Fubukis. Summer Verica got a little bit shafted. She's still pretty good for things like raids, because of her you heal yourself type gimmick. Fun story, I put a Taishan Gonzu on Juden during raids so we get more buff zones. So everyone's been like hating on Halloween Elasan recently, or not Halloween Elasan, but like the decision for her spiral to like double her SP cost at minimum. I ran the numbers. If you put Taishan Gonzu on Halloween Elasan pre-spiral, she can charge her skill 1 and a 5 combo 4 strike. Just like Fort. Light doesn't need spirals. Like, so the purpose of I see people like Xena Spiral when, and Xena just came out. The design purpose of mana spirals is to bring less used and less strong units up to the level of the current meta. And because Light was still relatively balanced, Light hasn't needed spirals. Light became more imbalanced with the recent banner that gave us Radiant Zhuanzang and Zhu Baijie, but that's like a different story. And I guess like Peony is like also top Light DPS, but Peony is also support and has a lot of support. Like a lot of that DPS falls to the teammates. Yeah, no, 50 MC, 55 up to 55 MC. Ellie, I wouldn't recommend taking her past 50 right now. Yeah, Taishan Gonzu, every 5-hit combo 4 strike, you can use skill 1. The first time it deals damage. The second time, 10% team strength. The third time, 10% team strength and a heal for the team. Not a regen, just a flat heal, but it heals the team. And you can do that all the time. 2 out of 3 skill shifts, 10% strength. 1 out of 3 skill shifts, healing. It's insane. Let's see. The second anniversary gala be Xena or Zethia? That's hard to say, honestly. Like, because I feel like we just got, like, we're what, 3 months out from anniversary? It's the middle of June, July, August, September. Yeah, we're 3 months out from anniversary. I feel like it's a little soon for like a gala Xena / Zethia. Like, we have chapter 15. So I was expecting Chapter 15 to be the last chapter in the current arc. I was not expecting Morsiade to be defeated in this chapter. I was expecting him to be defeated in the next one. And then we move on to the arc of the Northern Invaders. So the end to Chapter 14 does get me thinking again that the people fighting Valux might have been the Agito. Just because if black hair guy if he's not the Shadow Agito, then the numbers work out. Because we know Ciela and Volk were both... no, they kind of don't work out, though. Because, like, we know Ciela and Volk were both in the capital while Valux went up north. Because, like, one of the arguments is, like, what if those aren't happening at the same time? Well, they both happened, like, in the interlude, the same interlude, which happens in a chronological main campaign, so they would basically be happening at the same time. And if they wouldn't, they would have told us that it happened, like, prior or after the thing, like they did in the EX chapter, or, like, a few days prior to the battle, and then they showed us, like, fairies talking with, like, the others, and that was in Chapter 12. Yeah, so how do you feel about Blind Rise characters not really having anything to do with their resistances to blind? So one thing I like about Agito is that resistances, they either are very important or not important at all. In Kaiyan, resistances aren't super important as long as you don't get hit. In Ciela, same thing. Resistances are not important as long as you don't get hit. In Kaiyan and Ciela, it's very easy to not get hit. In the Volk, you need both resistances. And I really like it because both resistances do the same, like both afflictions, stun and sleep, they are identical in function. This allows them to do this. Like, for instance, Bog and Freeze are very different in function. So I was wondering before, like, the second Agito came out, like, are they going to do this again where they require both afflictions? And so, like, the boss has both afflictions, so they're technically both useful. So, like, a resistance is it's less of a feature and more of a plus for the Agito fights. And then for the High Dragons, like, I tested out Xena in Prelude High Jupiter the other day, and I accidentally cleared it, because I broke and then I dealt way too much damage than I thought I was going to do. Like, she got paralyzed so many times, and I totally forgot that I could have brought Cleo's shared skill and cleanse paralysis. But yeah, so... wait for a strength plus skill haste light dragon. Yeah, honestly, that wouldn't be terrible because, like, when you put Taishan Ganzu on Halloween Elasan, you don't need any other forms of skill haste to make the cutoff. Like, Tai on her own makes that cutoff. You don't need a co-ability, you don't need a worm print. So a strength skill haste light dragon would be really good on Halloween Elasan. What collabs do I want in the future? I actually have a upcoming project that I'm working on. I'm planning on launching a separate, less frequent series to the How to Play series called Let's Design. And one of the first episodes, not the first episode because I want to get my foot in the water before I, like, bring out all the big guns, is a idea for a collab and the different units it could have. It's a doozy. It's really unlikely, but it's really cool. And I'm really excited for it. I just have to find the time to do it. Because I do work a full-time job and I only have the evenings to work on things. And, like, part of that is already devoted to, like, hanging with friends. So, but I will make it eventually. Let's see. But as far as, like, collabs I want in the future that I'm not doing in a secretive project, I know a lot of people want a Legend of Zelda. I'm a huge fan of Legend of Zelda. Taisha needed to be mubbed for that to work on Ellie. Technically, no. If you don't mub her, you can add a Boko ability and it'll work just fine. Oh yeah, Nadine's phone is 100% a Sheikah slate. It could not. I think it less confirms a Zelda collab and more confirms that Legend of Zelda is in that Breath of the Wild is in the multiverse with Dragalia Lost. So they're not confirming it, but they're definitely opening the door. Let's see. Nintendo stepping away from the mobile industry if it'll affect DL. Nintendo doesn't seem to have a huge hand in Dragalia Lost anyway. Like, the most they do nowadays is just post things on Nintendo Mobile, their YouTube channel. So, like, I don't think Nintendo, like, kind of not helping out much with DL is going to affect very much. If DL is going to die, it's not because of that. And, like, another thing I want to address is I know, Pokemon Trip HD decided to leave DL because he was losing interest in it and he thinks the game is dying. And my opinion is whether the game is dying or not, I do not regret the time I spent with the game, and I do not regret continuing to spend time on the game because it's still fun for me. And, like, even if the game itself is repetitive and not super great, my enjoyment comes more out of the community and doing things like this where I talk with people. Like, again, I'm on Discord, like, all the time. Like, almost every evening I'm chatting with someone in, like, voice chat, like, chatting about lore, chatting about builds, chatting about gameplay, helping new players. It's the community is where I get my fun out of the game. Oh, the maintenance is going? Yes! Oh, shoot, no. Oh, gosh, I just realized. No, I have to be to bed before the maintenance ends, and I didn't use all my wings or stamina. Oh, no. Oh, no. I need to set my alarm for, like, reset. Oops. Whoopsies. More streams like this. So, the reason I decided to do this in a live stream is literally because I didn't want to write all these thoughts down, have to organize them, and then edit that monster together. Like, I kid you not, if you watch any of my highly edited videos, like how to plays, you don't hear me breathe because I edit my breaths out. Like, it's a lot. So, that's the reasoning behind this style of live stream. I honestly wasn't expecting this many people to show up. So, thank you all for joining. Oh, I never even downloaded Mario Kart Tour because I have Mario Kart Deluxe on Switch. And, like, I don't know, facts, just fact. When I downloaded Dragalia Lost, I had no idea what a gacha game was. And I played Fire Emblem Heroes. I still had no idea what a gacha game was. It's like, I never got really invested in Fire Emblem Heroes because, I don't know, it's just, I was never really a Fire Emblem fan. I'm just like, ooh, Nintendo Mobile. I was a fan of Nintendo Mobile from the start. Like, when they announced they'd be going to the mobile market, I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And then they first came out with Miitomo. And it's easy to see why that game flopped, but it was charming while it lasted. Because, like, I made friends. I chatted. Several of the friends I made in Miitomo are now my friends on Switch. So, DL Cross Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? What do you mean? We already got, like, 3 Super Smash Bros. Reps. We got Marth, we got Mega Man. Maybe just 2, I don't know. Let's see, what else have people said that I'm missing? Oh gosh. I mean, like, I heard bad things about Pokemon Masters. I heard, like, it got better, but not by a lot. I never picked that one up. As far as the mobile market goes, I played Miitomo until it died. I tried Fire Emblem Heroes. I thought about deleting it because it takes up a bunch of space, but I haven't. Pokemon Quest was interesting. Like, Pokemon Quest first came out on the Switch, and I tried it. I'm like, this would make a much better mobile game. This is not a game I want to play on my Switch. Let's see. Magikarp Jump is so charming. Like, you don't need to spend money on it. You can, but you really don't need to. It's so charming. Let's see. I tried Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. It was it was fun. I played it daily for a while, and then I kind of fell out of it. I did the same thing with Animal Crossing New Horizons. I played it daily for a while, and I just kind of fell out of it. Yeah, like, so it's interesting because Dragalia Lost it's like co-owned by Sega Games and Nintendo. So if we got, like, a Dragalia Lost title on Switch, that would be huge for the game. Like, I really, really want to see, like, a Warriors game with Dragalia Lost. Like, we got one with Fire Emblem, and that was pretty cool. And Fire Emblem Heroes was, like, so much fun. It's definitely one of my favorite games on the Wii U. and I haven't played it in a while on my Switch, but it was so much fun. And like that's honestly what I was hoping for with the Onslaught event when they first announced it. Is like, give us something like that, waves and waves of enemies for us to just tear through, and then it was disappointing. But like that's almost what we got with the new chapter levels, like just a bunch of small units just running at us and some mini bosses. Like it was great. I mean, if we get a Juden me costume, I'll accept it because it's a step in the door. Oh, a Dragalia dungeon crawler. You mean Dragalia Dungeons? Like that kind of spin-off? Oh yeah, like when the Fae crossover happened and like Dragalia didn't cross over into Fae. I mean, like look at me, like I've done collabs with several people who have like shown up on my channel without me showing up on them, but I'm honestly not upset about it because I'm literally here to have fun. Like that is my entire motivation for this channel, is I'm just here to have fun. Let's see. How did I find out about Dragalia? Well, I had mentioned I was keeping an eye on the mobile market, and I saw the Dragalia Digest. And another question I've been asked before is, why is Fubuki my favorite dragon? Like, why do I like Fubuki so much? So when the Dragalia Digest came out, and now bear in mind, I didn't know what a gacha game was, and they showed off summoning. I'm like, oh, look at all these shiny new units you can get. And like, they had like a specific unit to represent each like type of thing. I can't remember what the worm print was, but for the adventurers, they used Edward. And for the dragon, they used Fubuki. And I remember seeing Fubuki and like, that is absolutely adorable. I want these adorable dragons. And so that's where I started to like Fubuki. And when I actually picked up the game, and like I got the 3-star dragons, and then I got Leviathan, and I'm like, but what about my 3-star dragons? They're so adorable. How did I find Foundry? Same way a lot of people do stumble into him on YouTube. I honestly don't remember. It's probably like let's see, I think I unironically think that the thing that got me watching Foundry's content was like, welcome to Dragalia Foundry, a place where everything Dragalia lost can be found, and that pun was just like on point, and I was like, yes, this is good. And I know a lot of people groan when they hear a pun like that, but like that catchphrase is just like great. I would love to see a Dragalia Lost anime. The problem with that is like, what would the plot be? It would be almost entirely filler episodes on like the castle stories and characters and stuff, which I honestly wouldn't be opposed to. Like, these characters have a lot of personality, and especially with adventure stories like recently are really good. Like, I recently read a Zubajay's adventure story, and like the framing of it was really, really good. I'm not going to spoil anything from it, but like the way it was presented was really unique, and the story itself was very nice. I mean, if I seem to be close with Foundry, it's because I'm hanging out on his Discord all the time. Like, I have my own Discord, but it's not necessarily a Dragalia Lost Discord. It's just kind of my community Discord. And like, I don't know, it's just a place for hanging out. But like, when I hang out for Dragalia Lost stuff, I go on like someone else's Discord. I initially didn't want to have a Discord because I felt that would just split the community more. Like, if people are spending time on, like, if like there's like more than another, if there's another Discord, it means people are spending time there instead of being a more complete community somewhere else. Who is best girl and best boy? Estelle Best Belle. I only say that because it rhymes. Estelle's my favorite 3-star character, which made it really sad when How to Play Estelle didn't do as well as my normal How to Plays. But whatever, you know, it's, if you want to spend your time there, you can. But like, Estelle's my favorite 3-star because she's my favorite unit by personality. Like, the fact that she's like, so the history behind my name is straight lace. So straight lace is derived from the adjective straight-laced, which means morally strict, which is a large part of my personality. Like, you will have noticed that in this entire 2 hours and 40 minutes, I haven't cursed. So, like, I hold myself to very high moral standards. And when I saw Estelle, like, literally quoting the Bible in part 4 of her adventure story, I'm like, yeah, this is my favorite character. Downside, she doesn't wear pants. So you'll notice in the thumbnail for how to play Estelle, I scribbled some pants on. But yeah. So as far as other favorites, I myself am Catholic, so I'm drawn to like all the Ilian Church characters. So that's like where those come from. So Hawk is my favorite character by design. I really like the different pieces of his costume. Like the quivers on the legs is really cool because like I'm an engineer in real life, so I really like thinking about mechanics and like how things are designed. And I'm also like I'm also a game developer, so problem solving is like my jam. So when I see something like quickly reach down to grab an arrow and pull it out of a quiver and notch it into your bow, I'm like, yes, that is perfect. Like it's a great place to put a quiver. It's a very stable place to put a quiver as opposed to like the waist or the back where you'd have to reach for it or it could be free hanging. And like I'm a sucker for cool scarves, and Hawk has a nice cool scarf. He's got his hawk, which, you know, is cool. Birds are cool. He's got a hood. I'm a sucker for hoods. So Hawk is my favorite character by design. I also like bows in real life, is another thing. So then Makoto is my favorite character to play. I previously stated he was my first 5-star unit. I got him with the 5-star voucher. And he's part of the reasons I'm a Blade main, because like Blades are my favorite character. Also partly because the intricacies and options of their moveset, like you can do the delayed 5th hit or the you can change the direction of the 5th hit if you swipe while they do the jump back during the 4th hit. They're rarely used, but if like an enemy is about to unleash like a small red attack and you do the 4th hit to step back, you can do a delayed 5th hit to dodge and still hit. So I really like Blades. Makoto was my first really good Blade, and I really liked the simplicity of his kit when he came out. It's like his skill 1 has a timed skill shift where like you when you use it, you activate Flare Stance. And Flare Stance power it like kind of like how Halloween Elasan has a skill shift, but there's no time limit. So you use like Sacred Maiden, it deals damage. You use Sacred Maiden 2, it deals damage and 10% strength for the team. Sacred Maiden 3, it deals damage, 10% strength for the team, heals the team. Back to phase 1. With Makoto, it's very similar, although phase 2 is Flare Stance and phase 3 is Ruin Stance. They increase his strength, however, the buff runs out. So if you don't use Ravenous Fire again before it runs out, you revert to phase 1. So he needs to keep up his SP gain in order to deal optimal DPS. And I thought that was really cool that it rewards DPS. It rewards good play and DPS with more DPS. So I'm really excited for his Spiral whenever he gets one. Right now, my Blade of choice is Nobunaga, just because Dispel. Let's do something and help everyone with the power of love and friendship. I believe every episode of Dragalia anime would be like that. Look, Dragalia Lost is an anime game. The power of friendship and the power of love are the two most powerful forces like ever, because this is an anime. And like Wedding Aoi, I found it so hilarious that in chapter 1 of her story it confirms that clothing literally has power. Like changing your outfit literally changes your abilities. It is absolutely hilarious. Like she dons her wedding gown because it gives her new wedding ninja abilities. Or ninja bride abilities is what she called it. I do feel bad for staff mains because staffs just aren't required in fights, but it is nice that they are required in some. The problem is like we don't have, like, again, it goes back to the problem of we're not getting content as fast as we're getting units, and like our end game content where staffs are actually useful, we don't have enough varied elements. Like for instance, High Midgard Simmer and Volk both require a healer. Brunhilde's Trial requires a healer, that's good. It doesn't require one per se if you're quick, but that's kind of hard to pull off. Sorry if I go silent for a moment because I'm reading chat. So we don't have the twins yet, but I would presume that if they're well designed, you should be able to do 4 DPS runs, but it's dangerous, or a healer run and it's reliable. With Mercury, neither Mercury nor Ciela require a healer. Mercury kind of punishes you for bringing one because of the DPS loss, but I really like that Ciela has room for both healer and non-healer runs. And I really like that about the fight. I hope they continue that with the twins and the Shadow Agito. Although I kind of wish the Shadow Agito kind of requires one because, moving on, High Jupiter used to require healer, and then Glio happened, and now, like, healers just don't have a place in Light right now. Kaion is the same case. You can do healer or no healer runs, but no healer runs are more common because it isn't balanced against Shadow right now. So I would assume healer runs will get slightly more popular and Master Kaion comes out. And as far as Zodiark goes, Zodiark's the only Shadow content we have right now. No one really runs it because you'd only get Dragon Tier 2s at max out of it, and it's much easier to do Kaion, which also gives you Shadow weapons. So High Zodiark's kind of dead right now, which is kind of sad. But like the I called it the FIP strategy in the guide, Fleur, Yachio, Prince. That guide is kind of taken it kind of passed out of usefulness, not just because people don't run it, but because they lowered opening blast, so triggering Juden's dragon thing at 30% HP is a bit harder now. But yeah, like 4 DPS runs became a thing, and just they dropped healer completely, and running a healer was less reliable than running 4 DPS. The mentor bonus is not a bad idea, it's just bad in the way it's implemented right now. Because like we get like epithets up to like 1,000 mentor bonuses. Like, it's insane. The other day I was actually running expert Brunhilde, I think, just for weeklies, and like the only reason I do high dragons right now is for elemental, is for the orbs, so I can finish upgrading my Fafnirs. And like I stumbled into a mentor bonus, and it was like, oh, okay, nice, 25 Ormite. Like, they're so few and far between nowadays. Like, can they honestly expect us to get like 1,000 mentor bonuses? Like, I feel like it should be like their first like 5 or 10 runs, like whatever. Like, mentor bonuses should be like all the time. But like, their first clear only gets them a single copy of the dragon, and like I'm not even sure a first clear of expert gets you enough to like make a weapon. So but like, I do like to do charity work, and by that I mean like helping newer players like clear quests, but I don't just like drop in and do it. I'll like be on Discord and see someone's calling for help and drop in from time to time. Let's see. What's the deal with Baron? I talked about that like 2 hours ago. Sorry. Yeah, this is coming up on 3 hours, and I actually have to go to bed soon to get up for work tomorrow. So I'll try and wrap this up soon. Yeah, I think I covered all the things I wanted to talk about, and then there's just like a general discussion at the end. Basically, in summary, my thoughts on Chapter 14, it was all right. If nothing else, Baron showing up and eating the other was a nice twist. Bridegroom Banner Adventurers. That's kind of a loaded question for me, because I don't summon based on waifu. I summon based on kit, and I summon in general because I like collecting the players for how to plays. Let's see. Philia kind of got shafted last round because that was kind of her thing. That's about it. Orion could be a fun one. Although he doesn't seem like the one kind of, well, he like he's the one kind of gal kind of guy, but he's like looking for the one kind of gal, so he's kind of shopping around until he finds her. It feels like. How to monetize more? It's kind of a tough question because there are other ways to monetize the game, but they require, like, working with what we got, that's a tough question. Like, weapon skins are an idea. Like, if I could buy a pack to unlock, like, the rainbow weapons that we get from the gacha, like the rainbow sword, the rainbow blade, that would be pretty cool. Like, right now, our monetization options are pretty much the monthly packs, which are pretty much pay to advance faster. And, like, it's not by a whole lot either, and the exchange rates are pretty high. Like, it's kind of hard to, like, get into Diamantium just because the prices are so high. It's like $40 for a monthly pack. And yeah, they're like the $8 packs for the weekly packs, but those don't give you much. So tomes are definitely a step in the right direction. I know some people are annoyed that, like, the exchange rate's pretty bad, but those aren't for standard players. Those are for whales. Let's see. One thought I had at one point is if they did, like, alternate skins for characters, but they tend to release alternate skins as full-blown alternate characters. Because, like, one of the problems is this isn't just a 2D game where you draw up a new sprite and you're good to go. For every new unit, they have to fully 3D model a new unit. And, like, if you're gonna make a new 3D model, why use it on a weapon skin when you can use it on a new full-blown character? Like, they would, like, because the Diamantium it takes to summon a specific character is gonna be, like, you're not gonna get a character in a single tenfold, probably. Statistically, you won't. You could, but you probably won't. So, let's say that's at least 1,200 Diamantium for one unit skin. That's a lot for one skin. And, like, if people aren't going to pay for that, then it's much better to just work up a new kit, program it, and make it a new unit where people are going to spend for it. I said in the past, if there's a monthly subscription, I walk. I'm not fully on board with that plan now. It depends on the monthly subscription. I don't want a monthly subscription because, okay. Think about this. I think it's 24 summons. Let's see. No, 50. No, hold on. I'm trying to work out the math. Like, let's see. So if it's... Yeah, so it'll be like 25 summons is worth $60. That's the equivalent of a Switch game. For 25 summons, that's 2.5 tenfolds. And most of those are going to be 3-star. Like, unless it's a Gala, you're not even more than 50% likely to get a 5-star. That's an estimate. Don't take my math, like, at face value. I heard a lot of people are upset with Fire Emblem Heroes for the monthly subscription. I don't play it myself. But yeah, it's like the time attack. Like, some people will be okay with it and revel in it and all the stuff it gets them. Some people will hate it massively. And, like, it's lock, like, because Dragalia Lost has never been a lock content behind paywall. It has never been that. Like, you can always, like, do, like, it's incredibly free-to-play friendly. Like, Elisan is one of the top water units without a spiral from the start of the game and is welfare. She's free. Like, that's pretty insane. Juden at 70 MC is not the best, but he's still good. Ranzel got Dispel in his skill 1, which makes him worth investing in. Cleo is a decently reliable healer, especially with her spiral and gets healing on her skill 2. Luca remains to be seen, still up in the air. And then, like, our new chapter 14 unit she's not amazing, but in the shadow meta, like with the more powerful shadow units, she still kind of holds her own, which is insane. Yeah, like, I feel like if they added some type of monetization, it would need to be a new thing. Gosh, if I could just buy Eldwater, depending on the exchange rate, like, let's see. I mean, I can buy Eldwater. I buy Diamantium and then I summon, but, like, that's not guaranteed Eldwater. All right. Good night, Jose Peralta. I hope I didn't botch your name. I need to go to bed myself shortly. Yeah, I got like 5 more minutes. Yeah, Cassandra really got shafted. Like, I mean, the power creep is bad, but it's definitely not as bad as it could be. Like, the problem with Cassandra is mostly just her kit. Like, her kit relies heavily on a reflection skill, and there's no content to use that in. Like, because the reflection skill is so RNG based, it's like, you either do almost nothing with the attack you reflect, or the attack has a chance to kill you. That's it. There's no in between. And there's no content that facilitates that. Not to mention with units like Delphi, who has a reflect on a skill too, also lowers the target's strength by 15%. So, if it's a light unit. So, basically, with him, you want to use your skill 2 before the big blast to lower the strength and make the blast deal less to your allies, as opposed to reflecting the blast. So, like, reflection units just aren't very good in general. So, looking at Cassandra, Lee, and Fjorm, I think are the big 3. Delphi has it too, but it's not a huge part of his kit. Yeah, so Cassandra was supposed to be Dark Fjorm, and like, Fjorm was really good when she came out for Fjorm cheesing, and I appreciated the existence of that. It was niche, but it didn't need to be anything else. It's like she had her niche. And then they spiraled her and allowed her to clear Expert, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I was expecting out of the spiral. And then they nerfed Opening Blast, and I was like, that was probably not the best plan. Because, like, if Opening Blast is a problem, run the Wormprint. Like, nobody runs those anymore. Alright, let's see. What is max level best barrel up to 5 stars? Let's see. But yeah, so I think that's about it. I'm gonna call it for the night. But if you guys want to hang out with me at all, I am on voice chat. Like, I love to chat with people just all the time on Foundry's Discord. And I'll also join it on my Discord if I see people hanging out. And if you just want to like chat with text stuff that I can catch up on later, you can join my Discord. I don't know. I don't like self-promotion, so I'm just plugging it here for if you guys want it. So, but yeah. So I'm going to call it here. Thank you everyone for sticking with me for however long you've been here. I'm sorry for those who joined late and got really confused. I'm sorry for those of you who rewatched this from its archived whatever. I'm pretty sure it'll go up, and took 3 whole hours. I hope you all got something out of this, and I hope I got enough points across to have people like develop more complete opinions about Chapter 14. So, like, I just wanted to like have everyone considering more information before everyone said I hate it or I love it. So, but thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all next time. If there's next time, I don't know if when I'm gonna stream again, but yeah, thanks for joining me.